Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Oh, there's Dan.
Oh,
Hi. Tim will not be joining. Whoa. Sorry.
Everything okay?
I don't know. It sounds like, is there a lot of feedback?
I'm
There
not
was for a
hearing it.
minute.
Okay. Tim is not going to be joining us. He has a prior engagement, but he said if we need anything, he is available via text.
Okay.
And David Hamstra should be joining us. Let me reach out to him and make sure.
All right. I'm not sure if we still have Angel with us or not, but I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. We're here tonight, the Harmony CDD, doing a workshop on a proposed budget to discuss. There's no action that will be taken during this meeting. It will strictly be discussion and information for the board. But we will start our meeting off with audience comments. Again, if there's anyone in the audience with us tonight on Zoom who would like to make any statements to the board, it is open now. So anyone interested in making a statement to the board? Okay, hearing none. Angel, are you back with us yet?
I am.
Wonderful. Okay, the next item on the agenda, and nobody tuned in requesting to speak or anything, Angel?
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay, great. All right, the next item on our agenda is discussion of the upcoming open seat on the board and how to fill that. Angel, did you have some information or ideas on how to solicit candidates, or any of the board members have any ideas?
So yes, there are a couple different ways you can do it. When you have a declared open vacant seat, you can post it on the website that there is a vacant seat. The board is accepting resumes. You can also partner with the HOA and have them send out something stating that there is an open seat and please submit resumes. As those come in, those would be sent out to the board members and also in the upcoming agenda, you know, the next agenda that will be coming out. And that way you have plenty of time to review them and then come to that following meeting. If you find a viable candidate that the board can agree on, you could appoint them at that point. If you don't find a viable candidate, we could keep the advertisements going, and then you could essentially appoint at the following meeting, and you know, when you find a viable candidate.
what open seat are we talking about?
That'll be the seat of Mr. Berube. He's moved out of the neighborhood, and his 60-day period to establish a permanent residence in another location outside the district will run May 21st. So at that point, he will have vacated his seat.
Well, that's kind of contrary to what I read here on the code on the state of Florida code 190006, where it says that the requirement to hold a seat on a CDD board is that the member must be a resident of the state and a citizen of the United States. It says nothing at all about living in the community. It says nothing at all about vacating. So I'm just wondering what grounds this is on.
Well, further in the statute, it has a requirement that they be a qualified elector within the district that they serve. And the qualifications, the requirement to be a qualified elector is you have to actually physically reside in the district. There are a number of attorney general's opinions dealing with special board members on special districts and some case law on that too.
So there's cited case.
You can
Go
discuss
ahead.
all we want. My position from last month has not changed. I have no intention of resigning this seat. My residency has not changed. Talk about it all you want, but I suggest you move on to more important business like the budget.
I will just also add that the Harmony district's actual own rules require that board members be residents.
Do I have any discussion or ideas about how to further solicit interested parties for filling the seat?
It seems to me that Angel's suggestions are good.
Dan, do you have anything?
He's on mute.
Dan, you're muted.
Yeah, I understand. Sorry, I'm having connection issues with what I'm having.
Yeah.
I'm doing my best to.
Dan, you might want to try leaving and coming back into the meeting. It's really bad.
Yeah, it's
Understood.
Okay. So at this point, we'll wait until Dan gets back on, so we'll delay this a bit. I did mistakenly miss our roll call. And Dan was here. We'll check to see if he logs back in. Sitting here seeing everybody's names or faces up on the screen kind of got me off guard, but Carol Castle,
present.
Mike Scarborough,
President.
Steve Berube,
Present.
Dan Lee. Okay, we still have a very bad connection with Dan. And Steve Berube, you're here?
Yes,
Okay, so we're all here, but Dan is working on his connection.
Yeah, and I wonder if he can use, well, actually, there is no ability to chat, is there? On this call, on this Zoom. I guess there is no chat.
There's a chat that they can raise.
We can't use the chat because of the keeping requirements.
Sorry, that was really hard to understand. I think he said he was trying to use the chat, but something or other, I don't know.
We are not allowed to use the chat because of the record keeping requirements that would be associated with it. Other listen.
I can't hear anything.
No, I can't understand what he said.
Dan, is it possible for you to just phone in? Okay. Well,
just-
we'll move forward with that. Angel, we'll leave it in your competent hands to get the word out to the community and see who we have stepped forward.
Okay. All right, are you ready to jump into the budget, or are we waiting on Mr. Lee to be able to have a clear connection?
Let's give him just a minute or so and see if he can dial back in at least so he can hear the discussion.
So I do have a question. What is not on the agenda, but what was sent to us were the landscape bids.
Mhm.
It's not on the agenda. Are we going to be discussing it this evening?
We are. And for a workshop, there's not an issue with talking about something that's not on there. It is essentially for your regular meeting coming up on the 26th, but we will need to discuss it to some degree. You can't make a decision tonight, but to discuss it for budget purposes for
Yeah.
sure.
I understand.
Okay.
Okay. Hoping Dan's able to get in by phone. Oh, boy.
That's just as bad. Sorry.
I heard, hold on a second.
I did too.
Any better?
Yes, much
That's
better.
perfect.
Wow, okay. I was using a headset. I've used it before, and apparently that was a problem. Yeah, we can't use the chat because there are record keeping requirements for doing
I
it.
figured.
I will keep myself muted and listen and pipe in if I need to.
All right, great. Well,
Sure.
we're gonna,
Do we want to go back to the discussion of the open seat for Dan? Since he's-
okay. Yeah, Dan, did you catch what Angel said about reaching out to community members to see if anyone is interested?
I caught part of it. I can follow up with her by email later on. I want to
Okay.
hold a meeting up too much. I'm on the road, so.
Okay. And if you have any ideas, pass them along to her, please.
Will do.
Okay. Do you want to, Angel, go right into the budget, or do you want to give a brief overview of the landscape proposals first?
We can do the landscape first. Brett is on the line. I'll let him walk you through the summary he sent out, and I'm sure he's going to be very much more capable of answering your landscape questions than probably I am. So, Brett?
Hey guys, Dan, is there any chance I can share the screen or?
Let me see. Hold on, Brett, because I think,
Oh, wait a minute. Yep. Host is disabled, participant sharing.
okay.
And I'll show my pretty face for you too.
Yeah, if you're on as host. I had every intention of getting on as host with the laptop here, but that's obviously not working out.
So share screen is not a possibility?
Well, no, Brett or someone else from Infomark was already on as the host, so they would also be able to do it.
Yes.
Normally I would, but I'm not able to right now. Yep. All right, thanks.
Sure. Let's see.
Angel, you're the host, by the way.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm trying to see. Oh, there they are. Okay. We can do, who can share? Who can share? Only the host. Okay, Brett, you should be able to share. Can you?
Yes, I can.
All right.
So let me maximize that for you guys. Gosh, I might use that. And I will go to the board summary. And the biggest thing that we want to touch on is in reviewing this, making sure there's any questions. So I'll start with, there were 6 vendors that picked up the RFP packets mandatory. They picked up, or they attended the mandatory pre-bid. You see all 6 vendors listed: Seapra, Greenleaf, Juniper, Landcare, Cervelo, and Yellowstone. Unfortunately, Seapra and Landcare did not bid in terms of turn in a number for us to use. So I did reach out to both of them, and both of them did respond. Landcare is in a little bit of a labor crunch, and Seapra kind of explained that they've recently gone through a pretty significant growth spurt and are trying to grow smart, just collecting new work. And I can understand that. So what we can dive into, and I can answer questions, is basically on the top box where it breaks it down: turf maintenance, non right of way, shrub maintenance, tree maintenance, all that stuff. In the proposal packages, you'll see that each vendor broke down their pricing accordingly. It was requested of me that we provide a turf maintenance non right of way areas, which are, I can pull up the map here in a second and show you, but basically the streets, Caprior, Schoolhouse, 5 Oak, where there's a house abutting the right of way between the street and the home, those maintenance strips would come out of the contract. And again, it was just a request to see what the cost savings would be. And you'll see the pricing further down where I took their year one pricing. It's in a green box further down. So go ahead. Okay. So what you'll see as we scroll across, you'll see shrub maintenance, tree maintenance, general site, and trash and debris, and the irrigation system maintenance. And then we did have seasonal leaf drop included in this proposal or this RFP. So I can walk you through the numbers if you need it there, but I think the focus that we want to kind of look at, correct me if I'm wrong, is kind of their year one pricing, which would be what we're looking at going into this coming fiscal year, where my cursor is kind of circling, and then where that goes moving forward with the contracts. The other piece that I'll talk briefly about, where it says extra services, you do recall when we presented the specs and scope of services, we did take the mulch and the annuals out of the contract where it's billed at time of service versus paying 1/12 of it every month. So you will see this cost for seasonal color rotation is per rotation, and this would be 4 rotation costs. And then obviously your cost per bale of pine straw, and then the quantities that each vendor supplied. Obviously there were 2 vendors that didn't provide counts. Some of them felt that most of the pine straw is sitting in natural pine tree stands and that it would fall as needed. So I'll let you comment however you see fit. And then you have price per yard of mulch, number of yards per mulch needed. And this is per application. I want to make sure you understand that. So if 2 apps were made, you would see this number in your budget. Obviously, if it's 1 app, you would see it cut in half. That make sense?
Yes.
Okay. We also asked for a price for top choice fire ant control. Again, that provides you 1 year control for fire ants, whether that's at the dog park or maybe around the splash pad, the athletic field area. So you can see that cost breakdown by vendor. And then again, as we scroll down, this would be the non-right-of-way area that we talked about earlier, where the differences between these 2 columns here were taken out of their year 1 pricing and so forth, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, with the factors of their increases built in on their standard pricing. So that what we can do, or if you have questions or a quick overview, basically when you scroll up, I put on their grand total base maintenance, that includes the right-of-way. You see the variance to non-right-of-way. You see the cost savings if you take the right-of-way mowing out versus leaving it in on the 5-year grand total piece. So I tried to give you all that cost savings look side by side so you have an idea, not have to scroll back and forth.
A question on the bottom line, non-right-of-way annual pricing by vendor. That excludes the extra services in the box directly above it. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the extra services, Steve, would be still billed at time of service.
Right.
But yeah, that would be just for the pricing above. So if we took that right-of-way mowing out, obviously we would take out the mulch around those tree rings, and we would ask them to revisit those numbers.
Okay.
But we know what their price, we do have locked in what their price per bale and mulch as well.
Well, that's where I was going, was the mulch. So there's no mulch in that bottom box. Is that correct?
No, sir. No mulch or annuals. That's just straight maintenance. That's turf maintenance, shrub maintenance, tree maintenance, everything above, basically everything would basically be this right here, Steve. If you look where it says turf maintenance right away, all the way over to seasonal leaf drop would be included in that.
Okay, could you slide back down to the third box, one from the bottom, and then move it over so we can see the total of the annual, no, the other one. So my question is, do we have a total dollars for mulch from each of these guys? That's what I'm looking for, because that's a big number.
Yeah, so it's,
Right
what you would
there.
do is your price per yard is right here of mulch.
Yep.
And then the number of yards per application is right here. But I broke it into two. I can revise this so you can see just the cost per app, but
Okay, yep.
this cost per app does include your pine straw.
This is where I was going. You have, or they have bid a widely varying yards of mulch here. I mean, that's hugely different. One guy is one third of the high guy.
Yep.
I don't, maybe you know, maybe you don't, but you must have noticed that. What's going on there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, we definitely noticed that when putting the numbers in. What would happen is, in the scope is it does say that they're responsible for their own field estimates, and any mulch shortage falls back on the vendor to replace. But it seems like they feel there's more pine straw than there is mulch.
Yes.
So, again, that you look at the opposite for the people that actually provided mulch number or pine straw numbers, they have only 400 bales and 1,400 yards of mulch. So, that's on the vendor is what I'm getting at.
Well,
And again, we also reserve the right to go out and find our own price. That's also in the contract.
when you say it's on the vendor, you know what happens. They're going to cut back. If they underbid it, we're not going to get a whole lot of mulch. But it's a significant price difference here that stands out almost as much, well, it stands out more than the pricing differences from the total, which kind of caught my eye. I don't know. Seems like they're way off, just on that.
And again, we in the pre-bid meeting, we did make sure that we told them point blank, it's their responsibility to do their due diligence and field estimates. So if it's short and it's on them, if you think they're going to cut back services to make up for that, I don't know.
Slide back to the vendor side so we can see who the vendor is. Sorello is one up from the bottom, right?
Correct. They're in alphabetical order. Yeah.
Yeah, Cervello's been doing this for a number of years. You got to think that their 1,400 yards is pretty close based on experience. One would think, right?
I mean,
I know.
you would think, but when you go out and look at some of these beds, there's not a lot of mulch in them. So,
Right.
Yeah, some there's not a lot of mulch in them. Others, they're so mounded with mulch that it's hard to see how the plants are surviving in it. So
Yeah, the rest of this looks pretty, as expected. Everything seems to jive from one to the next, but that mulch just stood out as being crazy. The pine straw and the mulch, the numbers were just way off. So I don't know. I get that they're responsible, but in the end, we fight these battles, right?
Ms. Castle?
Yes, thank you. When Mr. Berube done, I had raised my
Hold on.
hand.
Go ahead. I didn't see your hand up. I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so question, and sorry for the background. So in the budget, there is a line for tree maintenance, contracts tree maintenance, but that is not included. So but there's also R&M trees and trimming.
Yes,
So
that's
a
different.
separate- Right, okay. So then I have another question about R&M irrigation.
That's outside of the contract.
And the irrigation system maintenance that is included in these in these bids, what does that include or not
yeah,
include?
so that's a good question. Two good questions. So the tree maintenance that is in there is all common area trees. Again, not right-of-way trees that we're currently kind of engaged with B&B on, keeping, the safety lifting off of roadways, sidewalk, and away from homes. The irrigation, so the tree maintenance falls onto like the trees that surround the nature trails, the parks, and everything else, that they would be responsible for lifting those Up to 15 feet is in contract is what that covers there. The irrigation maintenance, currently you guys have 6 inspections a year. I feel, and again, we talked about this when we presented the specifications, that we're facing some issues with repairs versus water conservation because they're inspecting half the property 1 month and then they don't come back to that property basically, or that side of the property for, you look at it like 2 months because they're only doing it 6 times a year. So you should have 12 inspections a year. That is very standard. So that spec did go up from what it currently was at. So what you're seeing there, and inside that irrigation maintenance spec, there's irrigation repairs up to 2 inches is included in contract. So heads, nozzles, drip lines, lateral lines under 2 inches. The only thing it won't cover is like valve replacements, tracking wire, irrigation clocks, boards, that kind of stuff. That would fall under the R&M irrigation.
And that would, in this budget, it shows $30,000. That's a lot, but I don't know if that's,
It was budgeted at what?
$30,000?
Actually, it's different than that, Carol. And we'll go through it when we go through the budget line for line. We're going to go line by line in the budget.
I understand, but I'm just trying to differentiate what we're looking at in terms of these bids versus what we're looking at in the budget, because I see what we've done in your amended budget, Angel, is that we've gone with the very highest number for each of these items. And so I'm just trying to see where these, what's included and what's not included, and whether we need $30,000 for R&M irrigation is just the question. And also the $35,000 for miscellaneous services, is that for, that's not included in these bids? And I assume that's for like refurbishment of areas where plant material has died and we need to replace it or something, or
No, what I've asked accounting, and I don't know that she's gotten it back to me yet. I asked what that is, what's been coded to there, and I asked her to send me a report for that, because I have no idea why you have a miscellaneous services line in there when you pretty much have all the lines under landscape services that you currently need. So I don't know what the miscellaneous would be at all. The irrigation repairs, and like Brett said, valves and all that, also mainline breaks, that kind of stuff would all go to the repair and maintenance line in your budget. That would go outside of the contract.
You have to remember, we have 2 different lines for irrigation. One is contract, which is the 6 inspections a year that Brett mentioned a second ago. That you're currently paying about $26,000 for. And the R&M irrigation is all of the labor, which is paid to fix what they find during the inspections. So 2 separate things there with irrigation.
Well, I understand that, but my question was more about now that we've got a different set of specs in our RFP, what is represented in the irrigation system maintenance in these bids was really my question, whether there's anything, whether we can expect anything different based on what was in the specs, what was in the RFP. That was a question. And I think, Angel, miscellaneous services is things like, if we have to treat the sycamore trees because they have a pest or a disease, or if we are replacing the landscaping in Blazing Star Park or some other location, I'm guessing that's what miscellaneous services under the landscape services.
And you're definitely probably right, Carol. I just didn't know. And that's why I asked for a report from accounting, because I don't know what has been thrown into that.
Your associate is correct, Carol, as to that miscellaneous was the catch-all for all the stuff you couldn't anticipate at budget time. That always comes up during the year with landscape.
Yeah. So now let me clarify, Brett. So if it's a 2-inch or less repair, it's included in the irrigation system maintenance number. If it's over 2 inches, then it's going to be a separate billed item, and that would go into the R&M irrigation.
Correct.
Okay.
Before we move on from irrigation, I have a question and a comment. if you guys, when you're finished.
Sure, go ahead.
So can somebody please remind me again why we took irrigation out of being done in-house? I mean, I know that we had justification or reasoning, but it seems to me that it hasn't really benefited possibly as well as we thought it would. I remember when I worked for the field services, irrigation was a relatively simple task, but we were able to do it daily, and we were able to keep the system under pretty good O&M maintenance control, dealing with heads that were either needed adjusted or heads that need fixed, even up to mainline breaks and so on and so forth. It's really not that difficult dealing with the irrigation system. So I'm just wondering why this is pulled out of, it continues, we don't have the discussion, I should say, about possibly bringing this back into field services. It was a system to me that we fixed something that wasn't broke. So that's my statement in question.
Okay. The question, we had lost, I guess, our field services manager at the time had let our experienced irrigation person go. He had to fire him. And we hired somebody else, and they promptly quit after a training period. So we had no one to do it. At that point, we considered bringing it under Cervelo. That way they would control, because the big point with Davy was that we were controlling irrigation, yet they were planting the plants. And the big thing in that litigation was what killed the plants, their poor performance or our manipulation of the irrigation system. So at that point, we decided to go ahead and try this model and see how it worked out. And we've been going on for a while. Again, it was a full-time equivalent. It was a 1.5 person, because frequently many of the large breaks took more than just the one irrigation technician we had. So we calculated it out, and it was a savings, still based on the numbers. It's still a bit of a savings with the numbers they're proposing here. For the higher bids for Yellowstone and Juniper, I don't know that it would be a savings. I discussed this with Brett, and he mentioned kind of a hybrid workaround. Do you want to mention that, Brett?
What was, I recall that.
We had discussed bringing in-house the repair work, but the actual adjustments and metering and controlling of how much water the landscape would get would be still with the landscape company.
Yeah. So putting the irrigation repairs in contract, will inflate your number a little bit, but you're not going to get the constant irrigation invoices that we're seeing. I'm not 100% comfortable with the field staff currently doing these repairs, especially main lines or wire tracking or anything to do with it. I will go back to what Teresa said. Normally, I would say 98% of the maintenance contracts that one I've ever experienced or we deal with currently, irrigation is handled by the vendor. It puts it in their court. They're fully responsible for 100% of turf and shrub maintenance and health. And when you take away that vital need and water and put it in somebody else's hands to manage the run times, to manage the repairs, there becomes a lot of finger pointing. And a lot of times vendors will come and say, well, I'm not going to warranty any turf or plant material because we don't necessarily, we can communicate to field services, but if they feel that the adjustment wasn't made in a timely manner, how do we hold them accountable for that? I think the biggest issue right now, to Mike's point, is I don't think Cervelo's doing a good enough job for us to notice the savings or see an improvement with the irrigation system maintenance. I think if if we had a better tech or better techs or in the property, you probably would see less issues or more water savings. But part of that as well is they're not every month inspecting the entire system. They're inspecting half of it. So that 2-month window where you could have a break that maybe isn't seen or reported, now you have wasted water, you have plant decline, and if it's not caught in time by the account manager, you have continued issues.
And if I can chime in for a second, every district I've managed over the last, I don't know, this is year 9, irrigation has always been in the landscape contract. Not that it's right, wrong, or otherwise, but nobody wants to point fingers. And that's what initially ends up happening. So anyways, that's my 2 cents.
So Angel and Brett, I will agree with you on the blame game. The companies will tend to use any excuse that they can to divert. What's that?
I said, of course, you're right.
Yeah, any responsibility, but you're going to be hard pressed to try to convince me that irrigation is a complicated scenario, because I've done both field services and irrigation for many years of my life. It's just not that difficult. It is not that difficult to run zones. It's not that difficult to check for broken heads. It's not even that difficult to replace heads. I mean, you unscrew and you screw. It's very simple. It's very basic clock operation stuff. So I guess to my point is, not only are we paying more now for irrigation services, albeit mainline breaks are somewhat of different scope, but in general, maintenance of irrigation systems now, not only is it costing us more, the performance is so subpar. I can't even tell you how many sprinklers I see shooting straight up in the air when the zones come on.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just something that didn't exist when it was under field services, because they were being checked daily. So talking about a hybrid, I don't know, is there some hybrid system that we can implement where field services continues with that routine maintenance? Because it is beneficial, in my opinion. And that's it.
Okay, I don't know. I don't know that I've noticed any more or less of what we call the geysers. It seems to be just a routine thing with a huge irrigation system like we have. I'm not saying that what we've got right now is the greatest. I don't know. In fact, the first 3 or 4 months of Cervelo, they had evidently a good irrigation technician running it. And we really saw everything come down significantly. Lately here, they've been going through irrigation technicians, and I don't know if our field services would have any better luck than they are having. So, again, I don't know. Maybe the next landscape company, if it's not Cervelo, will do a better job. If it is Cervelo, I'd like to really take a look at the irrigation part of it. So these are all things we're going to have to discuss further when we're actually making our selection at the meeting and going through and ranking them. So unless there are any more specific questions on this, are we ready to move on to the actual budget?
Yes, move on.
Okay, Angel, take it away.
All right. So let's see if I can share my screen. Okay, can everybody see this?
Yeah.
All right, so after I got some information back from accounting and some other information I was looking at, I went back in and made some additional changes that you'll see not in the one that I actually sent you, the PDF that I sent you. So I'm just going to start up here at the top, all your revenues. Does anyone have any question about this outside of what I highlighted, and that's your access card revenue? I mean, it's not gonna matter, obviously, if you're over on revenue, you're over, that's great. I don't know that we need to adjust. Oh, go ahead.
I do have a question. So we will be assessing those two lots that had not had assessments. And where is that, what line is that showing up in?
That doesn't show up here. It shows up here. So if you look here, Cat Lake, access and GA to be determined. Because once this all goes through, it goes back to the county and they'll be assessed. So that is captured here.
So what is the expected revenue from that?
She will not know until the budget numbers are done, and then that'll be added in.
But anyway, those are going to be done on raw acreage, correct?
Correct.
So if you look at that, if you go back to that sheet you were just on,
Oops, sorry.
you can see that raw acreage is at it's pretty small, 6,009, whatever it is, 82.
Yeah, 2.3 and 6.62.
You got about 9 acres times $6,000, $7,000 an acre, so $60,000, give or take. Rough numbers.
Roughly.
Nothing to sneeze at. Thank you.
Okay, is there, so right here, how I have this highlighted, that's just, you're gonna see more in that. And also at your meeting, I'll recommend you do a public hearing to look at your fees that you're charging. Because I think currently the district is charging under what it costs to actually purchase these cards.
Yes.
So, and Vincent, over the last, I don't know, Brett, like month or two, he's issued, I don't know, probably close to 200 cards, Brett. Oh, maybe Brett's not there.
Yeah. No, I'm here. Yeah, I know we went through the first 100 and we've already ordered another 100. So yeah, we're getting into the 150 range.
So that revenue will obviously go up, but right now you're charging less than what the cards actually cost. And maybe you don't want to reevaluate that, but it's an option.
Again, so we're just charging folks that are not property owners for the cards. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct, but I will confirm.
Okay.
Yes. Property owners do not get charged, renters get charged. And if a property owner loses a card, they have to pay to replace it.
Right. Yeah, there is a replacement fee for the residents. I do know that.
Okay. And we probably should reevaluate what we're charging per card before the apartments come in, because that will be a lot of renters that are coming in. And if we're charging less than it cost us to produce them, it could be a big hit.
It's yeah, it's probably in the range of, by the time you consider the lifespan of that printer, which is probably on its last legs, the ribbon and ink that goes in it, the cost of the card, and a certain amount of labor, you're probably approaching $25 per card in value, realistically.
Yeah.
Okay. So we will address that after
Mhm.
we do the budget. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes,
Because that'll have to be a rule change, right?
correct. And you'll have to have a public hearing because it concerns adjusting fees.
Okay.
I have one more question.
Sure.
That's on the RV storage lot.
Uh-huh.
Near the end of the last meeting, I believe it was, the last board meeting, I believe what I heard was that not only were we assessing whether to move forward with expanding the lot, but we also were in a quandary because the existing lot is not permitted by the county and that they're going to make us shut it down. When I saw this RV storage lot revenue line, I wondered whether we could depend on that revenue. Also, I'm not sure why the notes say garden and parking 15K per K.
Yeah, so I was going to address that, but So do you have anything else, Carol, before I?
No,
Uh,
that was my question.
All right, so that is from Kristen Suit in 21, because you're right. They did how you see it on your financials currently. It's like facility use or something like that. I changed that because they had it all combined into one, garden and RV storage. So I broke it out, RV storage lot, and right underneath it, you'll see garden lot.
Uh-huh.
Because it was hard to differentiate what the revenue was and who it was for. So now I've broken it out, and yes, you're right, that once the board determines what's going to happen, then yes, that revenue obviously would come out.
You're concerned about permitting, Carol? It is permitted. That's why we changed the, so we changed the.
Right, Steve, it's not actually permitted. We have the proper land use coding for it now in our PD, but we do not, it is not up to standards. We do not have it site planned. And we do not have all of the formal, county approvals to operate it. So yes, they could clamp down at any time and say, hey, you got to shut this down. They have not to date, which is nice of them. But again, there's no guarantee.
I see. Thank
But
you
if
for
we,
that
if we
clarification.
do the work as planned per what we went through the PUD for, then it should get permitted if we proceed forward with the work that Mr. Hampshire has done. Should be permittable at that point, right?
Right, if we go through with the putting in the road improvement, which is about $250,000, and the fencing, which is I think about 100,000, and the security lighting and the gate controls and things like that, yes, then we could probably, we would be in compliance.
Thank you. And one other thing, I want to point out, the special assessments tax collector, that's $1,200,000 above this year's budget. So that's a number that the budget will be if we don't cut any spending possibilities as we move forward here. Is that correct?
Yep, that is correct. And it also shows you here what the increases are. And as we go through this, you'll see where it's at. And then obviously if things need to be changed right now, I can change them right here, or you'll go into your regular meeting on the 26th and make changes, because we have to approve it at the May 26th meeting because the deadline is June 14th.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. And clarification, what we approve isn't what we have to stick with. We can go down, but we can't go up. Is that correct?
That is
Okay.
correct. So we want to make sure we cover anything that is even thought may need or what have you, because once this is approved and sent off by the 14th, you'll have between that date and your final budget, which is either July or August, to cut it down to get it where the board actually wants it, needs it, but you won't be able to add to it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So starting in administrative, all of these pretty much stayed the same. The only thing is I started here, engineering and legal services. So you were only budgeting 20,000 for engineering. I'm not sure how it went from 64,000 down to 20. That seems really low, especially for a community your size. But with everything that you've done this year, I highlighted it for a reason, so you could look at it and what projects will need to be done in fiscal year 23 to where you're going to need engineering services. So I'm not sure that 20,000 is even a realistic number in my recommendation. So, and then same for attorney. Currently right now, you're on a flat fee with quals for 4,800. So 48,000 a year. I don't know, you might want to put some extra in there for special counsel, outside counsel, if that ever arises. So you want to talk about either one of those numbers? We can start with whichever you would like.
Okay, one correction, we're on a 4,000 per month flat fee. Your notes say 4,800.
Oh, okay. That's what she had in here since last February. So, okay, perfect.
So, but it's 48,000 would be the annual.
Right.
But then if we would have to go, say, to outside counsel for property work or some other, then we would need additional there. I'm comfortable with these two numbers for planning purposes.
I am too.
Any
Okay.
other comments?
Anybody else?
Well, if you're gonna, as Mr. Hampshire told us a couple months ago, when you spend money on an engineer to bring a project to light, his cost is usually 10 or 15%. So if you allow $60,000 for engineering, that anticipates that you spend $600,000 for those projects getting, to bring them shovel ready. There might be other reasons to have an engineer work, but you got to consider if you keep adding work to him and paying him this amount of money, there's going to be a lot of money to cover the projects that he brings forward. That's just, I don't know how long we can continue to drive the engineer at the pace that we're going. And it's a slow process to bring these projects to fruition. Obviously you got to have an engineer. We need $60,000 in there. Well, maybe not. Maybe, hopefully you don't spend it. I don't know. It's just, whatever.
Angel, this is David. To piggyback on Steve said, a lot depends on how active we are next fiscal year on projects versus just traditional CDD meetings. So if we're going to keep the same pace as this past year, the 60 is low. So
Right. Understood. But I think 20 is not realistic, period.
agreed. Agreed.
Okay.
Mike, do you have any comments, or Dan? Mike, are you
I did.
still-
I'm still here. No, I did, but they were answered. Thank you.
Okay,
Still here. I'm good.
okay. All right. I'm going to stick with those for now. Hopefully the engineering for our big projects are done. I don't think for next year we have any other alleyway repaving. I think that's a couple of years out for the next segment of alleyway repavings, which would require engineering. Can anyone think of any other engineering projects we might have that we haven't already done work on to prepare us?
Well, there's, we're not done with the reserve study, and I don't recall offhand what's in I think it starts with 2023. I know that the pipe, Mr. Hamster's already done a lot of work regarding discovering what's going on with the pipes in the estates and the drainage pipes, but I'm guessing there may be more engineering cost in getting those that drainage system corrected, but I don't know. Mr. Hamster, maybe you can address that.
There's two elements, Carol. There's going to be the pipe repairs that Atlantic Pipe Services will do, whether they're going to slip line them or we replace them. And then there's work that we'll coordinate with Infomark on protecting the inlets on the surface with concrete rock and things like that. But that's the only one I can think of moving forward for next fiscal year that may turn into a drainage improvement project, but I'm hoping to avoid that with typical pipe repairs and then typical inlet repairs by Infomark or a contractor.
So are you saying that your engineering fees for that are going to be minimal or non-existent, or are you saying that they're going to be substantial?
They won't be substantial and they won't be minimal. It just depends on now that the county's cleaned their pipes, Now that Vincent has found the additional inlets, we have Atlantic Pipe Services going back out either late this week or early next week to finish what they started. And then I'll have a better handle by the 26th meeting, how many pipes have to be replaced or fixed. It doesn't require a lot of engineering or plans on my end, just some direction to the contractor and to the board. So it may be an extra 10 or 15 throughout the year, depending on our final findings on the repairs by Atlantic Pipe Services and the camera work. And hopefully it will not continue to degrade from what we found so far, so.
Thank you.
At this point, I think the 60,000 will cover attendance at meetings and the estates work. Anybody recommend changing, or is this a pretty good number for this stage in our deliberations?
Well, I think at this point, we leave it alone and mark it off as one we can reduce if need be, but seems like we're gonna have some engineering work, so, you know, what do you do?
Well, yeah, and the thing is whenever we're working in our stormwater system, it's probably going to take some engineering. The other thing around the corner is the question of increased lake level in Buck Lake. We've got to find out if there is a connection, because if we are a landlocked lake and we are going to get continual rises, and if Harmony West did their stormwater calcs as having a connection to Alligator Lake, then, and there's not one, then we could be having more engineering input, but we'll hold off and see where that goes.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So moving on, if you see, okay.
Okay, I just wasn't sure what that last comment was. I mean, there is an outflow canal from Buck Lake that eventually goes to Alligator Lake. Is that, or is there concerns about the health of that canal, or what's
It's Cat
Yeah.
Lake to Buck Lake we're looking at.
Oh. I thought it
okay,
was
gotcha.
Buck Lake to Alligator Lake, the one that goes under 192.
We also need to confirm, Teresa, the Cat Lake to Buck Lake connection supposedly underneath Billy's Trail, north of our property.
Right. So Dan, do you know the status of that one that connects to Alligator Lake? Is it flowing? Is it?
It's, I haven't been out there recently. I mean, at times it will, you know, depending on rainfall, it'll be, you know, there's growth in there. It's something we should be aware of. But as far as, sorry, just hearing that it was landlocked, you know, caught me off guard there. I thought Cat Lake actually flows north, like up toward Lake Mary Jane, but I'd have to look into that. I don't recall off the top of my head.
Okay, so we just need to get a handle on that. We may be working with Harmony West on improving the flow from Buck Lake to Alligator Lake. We're seeing our lake levels rise considerably and have impact to our boating facilities. So
I noticed that when I was there a couple of weeks ago. I thought that the water management district monitored and controlled that with some sort of a dam somewhere along the way. And that's why we have that control structure over by the dock. Does anybody look into that? Because they use some, raise the lake and lower the lake at will, well, seemingly. Go ahead, Dan.
They have the measuring thing there. I mean, maybe this was incorrect, but I remember Greg Gogowski in the past saying that it's not actively controlled and it's just allowed to stay at its natural level.
Right.
There might be something that's further downstream, you know, Alligator Lake or something where there is active control, but as far as on our property, I don't think there's any, you know, no dams or, you know, weirs or anything like that I know of.
Because I've never seen it. I don't ever remember seeing it as high as it has been lately. Something's up.
Yeah, it's a real problem, getting to be a real problem. So we need to look
Right.
into that.
A few years ago, I can't remember what the landscaping company was. They went and treated the canal that runs along the pipeline on Butterfly, just to cut down some of the growth and I guess improve the flow. Maybe we need to look at something like that for the drainage canal out to 192 toward Alligator.
Okay. All right, Angel, you want to
Sure.
take over?
All right, so here's your management contract, no change there from fiscal year 22. Property appraiser stays the same. Recording secretary, so wanted to talk about this. Currently, you're being charged $275 a month to do your verbatim minutes. With them not being clear and everybody kind of talking over and everything, I mean, it's taking an abundantly much more time to do these. So I need to see a way how we can be a little more clear and not talk over one another so we can really get these done. If not, it would jump to $350, which would put you at $4,200 a year instead of the $3,300. So we need to discuss how you all want to do that. I know it's not a significant number, but it still impacts your budget. So I wanted to make sure that we figure something out there. So that's why I did that. Anybody have any comments, concerns, questions regarding that and how we can get it much cleaner to be able to hear and listen to?
I
would just, oh, go ahead, Teresa.
Here we go. As chairperson, I really don't want to make people, have to be called on and stuff, but we can start doing that. But we've got to reduce our banter and finishing each other's sentences. And I'm just as guilty as that as the next guy. So maybe if we can all just be a little more respectful and just take a pause and let the next person finish. Carol, were you wanting to say something?
Well, Dan was, but I also wanted to say something.
Okay.
But Dan, go ahead first.
Yeah, so I would just, and I know I've mentioned this in the past, back when we were first looking at video transcription, there are numerous services out there. So maybe what we need to do is test the waters and maybe take a audio recording of one of our more troublesome, meetings to dictate, and whether they charge a premium for multiple speakers or whatever, see if if any of those external options are able to give us a good value compared to InfoMark to do it, or minimizing the additional work that InfoMark would need to do.
So I have pricing for everyone from 3 different companies. They charge anywhere from 25 cents a minute down to the actual word. And yes, Dan, as you stated, there is a premium for verbatim, timestamp, rush turned around. So it can get as costly as the board would like, but we can definitely do that. I can send over the board some pricing to look at prior to your 26th meeting, if everybody would like that.
Okay, Carol, did you have something to add?
I was going to suggest the same thing as Dan. So, but going back to what you were suggesting, Angel, did I understand that you were suggesting that we do what Dan was suggesting, try one of these services? So you said 25 cents a minute?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of different ones, as Dan stated. I even looked up some to see kind of, number one, what their turnaround rate was. So what's happening now is your meetings, so they come in, they get transcribed verbatim, word for word. Then I go through them and take out all the uhs and ums and all that kind of stuff, make sure the sentences are pieced together properly and the recording was heard properly. And obviously, as you can see, I still miss some of those things. And then your chairman also reviews them, and she puts in an excess of, and Teresa, I don't want to speak for you, but 6+ hours reviewing them as well. So, I mean, all in, you're like 16 to 20 hours with these minutes. So I know there's ways to do it a lot better. Even the last meeting, not this last one, but the one before that, those went very smooth when everybody said their name. And I know that that is cumbersome, you know, and all of that, but they went really good because nobody was really talking over one another, and they went out really smooth. And it didn't take that much time. So I just need to find a better, cleaner, more streamlined way. So yes.
Is your first cut, Angel, with a service? And then you review? Who
Yes.
does the
So
first verbatim?
yes, Mana used to do them, and then she would send them to Teresa, and Teresa was going through them, or your chairperson, I'm sorry, and going through them. And but again, Mana, I think it was a little subjective of what, you know, she felt shouldn't be in there versus what you really want in there. So when I took it over, I started checking out different companies that did transcription. And some are more than what you currently pay. You pay $275 a month to Infomark to do these, but I decided and asked Chris if it was okay if I use transcription company to see if it would come out at a better product. And it's not because they're still having to go through. They leave the uhs and ums. There is no thing like nearly verbatim. No company offers that, or at least any I could find offers a nearly verbatim where you would get like a somewhat cleaned up version. It would have all the uhs and ums and broken sentences in the back and forth going, you know, banter that you may not need or want in there. So.
Well, may not need, but if it's a, you know, an undue burden to provide that, and, you know, it maybe ends up being a little more work for whoever is reading it, but it's, you know, it's still an accurate representation of what was said.
Absolutely. It should match the audio. That's what verbatim is. It should match your audio.
Right.
So
personally, I wouldn't mind if that's, you know, if that meant we didn't need to incur a much bigger cost on the transcription. The gist of what everyone's saying would still be there.
Yeah, I would not be against trying one or two other transcription services for the first cut.
okay.
See if they're maybe perhaps better. If we've only tried one, then maybe, you know, I haven't looked into it, maybe, and I know Dan has, maybe he would have some suggestions about, you know, companies with really good reviews or whatever. I don't know.
Well, we'll let Angel investigate that further, and we'll see where it goes from there. It is painful reading that truly verbatim copies, and I'll let you all see one day.
We've seen them in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not, it is
Okay.
it is painful, but so we can talk about that at your meeting. And I'll have some more information for you to be able to have an intelligent conversation about it and see which way you all want to go. Your assessment, special assessment, that number stays the same. That's your bonds and everything. If you see the note out here and it tells you none of that has changed because your bonds haven't changed. Auditing, same, you were locked in for 2 more renewals. This will be your last year, and then this price obviously will go up. Right now, they're coming in at about 48 to 5,200 auditing RFPs that we've seen come in, but you're locked in at least here until next year when you go out for RFP again, or this year rather. Postage and freight, that includes all of your FedEx, any mailings that go to the trustee, all that stuff. That's all that is. I left it the same. Meeting room. So currently you do not pay anything. The tavern did confirm it's $250 per meeting. They will give you the ballroom. However, if you are bumped, they will make sure that the little small meeting room is available for you just to have your meeting in that room. So you wouldn't be bumped from the building. I did check, and advertising just the general address is totally fine. We wouldn't have to re-advertise or anything like that. but that brings you to $3,000 a month, a year for a meeting room if you do move somewhere like the tavern. So I put that in there until you all decide where you want to go. Your insurance, this is your new insurance cost. Everything went up, so that's what that is. Printing and binding, you have 500 in here. You've always done that. We do not, I do not, and no one that I'm aware of, you don't get agendas sent to you. We don't do any printing for you. So I would assume take that out unless you want to keep it in there for something special. I mean, I know it's only 500, but you don't need it. We don't print anything. I don't see why you would need it, but so that was my note here. We don't need it. Legal advertising, the same. Your storage fee that started back in 21, you have to pay that according to the new thing. I'm sure Kristen went over that back in 21 with everyone, because you weren't previously having to budget this. This is your collection. Again, this number is going to change as we go through the budget. And if your numbers change, this number is going to change. Miscellaneous contingency.
Wait a minute, Angel, please.
Sure.
So I see that, I think the line or the column before the column you've got highlighted here
This one,
shows the column before it.
this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it shows 35,000 and change for, I think that column is what the current fiscal year is projected to be, like the total for the year. So why is it going up by 25,000?
Well, that's what I just said. As you change the numbers in your budget, this number changes because this is tied to your assessments of whatever we're assessing, 2% of that. So, and that goes to the county or the city. Is it the county? Yes, the county. It's the collection cost. So that number will change based on what we end up this whole budget with.
So if we increase our assessments, then this is 2%
yes.
of whatever the assessment is.
So that's based on all of these, all of the high numbers from the landscaping and
Yes, ma'am.
the cost of the invasives contract, et cetera.
Yes, ma'am.
I see. Okay, thank you.
This one, I left at 5,000 until you can discuss it. This includes your HOA fee that you used to pay them to manage, I believe the RV and garden. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, so you're not doing that anymore. We've taken it. So this, I don't know what you want to leave this for or whatever. The other was just a contingency of whatever.
So we can just take this out since we no longer,
Yes, I would say
Paying it
you
for
can
management.
zero it out.
okay.
So we can take out printing and binding and the miscellaneous contingency under administrative.
Mhm.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right, and
Filing
then
fee.
go ahead.
We have our filing fee for the state.
Yep, that's the same. This is your field management, didn't change. Trailer rental didn't change. Here's all your landscaping. And if you can see, I took the highest number from everything on your summary. So these numbers will definitely change when we get to the meeting and the board decides which way they're going to go. But that's what I did here. I took the highest number from your bid summary that Brett provided, and I inputted them in all of this. I broke it out even more because you have trash and debris in there and you have leaf drop. Even though leaf drop was considered in every bid except for one vendor, they're charging $24,961 for leaf drop. I left that in there in case that is the bidder you go with. Or the other thing, if you look here, if leaves are a big deal in Harmony, you might want to consider having someone come in and street sweep the leaves certain times a year. So I don't know what you want to do, but that's where that number came from, if anyone's
Can we
curious.
hold there for a second? Brett,
Sure.
are you still with us?
He's on mute.
What?
Brett, looking for Brett.
Oh, Brett?
Yep, I'm here. Sorry, I had to unmute my.
That's okay. This is dawned on me. We're talking about leaf drop. I know what it means, but how much leaf pickup are we getting for this money for leaf drop? All the streets, just the main drags, just a little bit that Savella was doing lately? How much leaf drop is being picked up and how often?
Right, so the leaves drop that was discussed in the scope did not include streets because those are city owned or county owned, right? So
Okay.
the leaf collection talked about was around, pools and common areas, sidewalks, beds, that kind of stuff in your common area turf and
Okay.
beds.
All right, so no street leaf pickup. Got it. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, and Celebration has the actual leaf pickup from the streets, is that not correct?
Correct. They don't own their streets in Celebration. However, this community is very, very, what's the word? Anal about leaves in the streets. I mean, they really are every day. So they do have a contract with, I think it's Seal and Stripe USA or something. They come in, they actually do it all year, but during the actual season, it's a lot more than the rest of the year. But yeah, they sweep it. I think it's like twice a week that they do it. I think they pay $66,000 a year for this vendor to come in and do it because they don't like leaves everywhere. So that's always an option if that's something Celebration does. I know with storm drains and stuff, a lot of communities do it to keep the storm drains a little bit cleaner and what have you. I don't know. But if that is something you're interested in, then we can definitely look at that and put a number in. But the reason it's there is because one vendor did not include it in their contract.
I mean, it might be good for us to consider it during the season. I don't think we're quite as anal about it as Celebration might be. A few leaves aren't a problem, but the massive leaves we get when the oaks drop and the sycamores drop, it might be something for us to consider having a vacuum vendor come around, and so we might price that out.
Okay.
I'm comfortable leaving it in for now for budgeting purposes.
Yeah, because again, like I said, if you go with that particular vendor for landscaping, you're going to need to include it because they priced it out. So once we're in the meeting and you determine which way you all want to go with that, we can remove it, add to it, whatever we need to do. This was the repair and maintenance irrigation that Mrs. Castle was talking about earlier. You budgeted 15. I increased it to 30. I don't know, and maybe that's not a valid number to have in there for irrigation, maintenance and repair. I know your system's older. There have been a lot of valves and what have you. So I put it to 30. Also, I put a note in here. I know at one time you all were talking about a new system, which I know is way more than 30,000, but so I put that note on here as well. So I don't know where the board is on a new system, if that's out the window, or if you think 30,000 is too much and you want to go back to 15. I mean, so that's where that number came from. Let me see. So through March, you're already at almost 15,000, and that's just at the end of March.
And we've had some major breaks, right?
Yes, a few.
Probably safe with the 30,000.
Yeah.
What?
Better to have more than not enough.
Right. So is everyone comfortable with the 30,000, or do we want to change that number?
I'm comfortable with it.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Dan, Mike?
Good, good.
Okay. This is tree and trimming, repair and maintenance. I think Brett went over that earlier. I left it at what you all had it previously at 40. I left it the exact same and just put a question mark. if you think more needs to be in there or less.
This is the line that we're typically using for B and B now, is that correct?
Well, yeah, because it would be for everything that's not in your landscape contract. So the street
Right.
trees essentially is what this line would be, or any removals and replacements. That's where it would come out of, is this line.
Yeah, so we've had some trees die and they'd have to be removed and replaced.
Right.
Trees are rough and they certainly need trimming. I think that, if you want to keep the trees nice,
Yeah,
spend the money, right? I don't know. What do you do?
what is the miscellaneous services for the next line? Is that,
Oh,
that
yeah.
was, that's what we discussed as far as if a planting bed need to be redone or,
Yes, and I did get an answer back from Helena. Let's see. Contingency and miscellaneous service provided by Kristen. A portion of the miscellaneous contingency, oh, that's further down. That was mitigation of invasive weeds. Miscellaneous services. Draining service for holding tank of the district's office trailer.
oh, that doesn't belong under landscape.
That's under operations and maintenance, no?
She,
It's gotta be something more than that. That's only like $125.
wait a minute, miscellaneous services.
Yeah, that's under operation and maintenance.
Right here.
Oh, okay.
That's
That's
what
the
that
real
one
one.
is. Miscellaneous contingency.
Under landscape services.
Right, I sent her a list of all of these. So I'm trying to discern which one she's talking about here. All right, miscellaneous services. It is landscaping, anything renewals, enhancements, anything having to do with landscaping is here. So essentially
Okay.
you budgeted 35,000 for all intents and purposes, landscape replacements or enhancements, whichever you want to call it. And then down here, this line, the district is required to mitigate certain invasive weeds. This is largely a chemical and equipment-based process. The fiscal year contingency represents the potential excess of unscheduled maintenance expenses that is not included in the budget categories or anticipated line items. So that's what the 8,000 is for here.
What, that doesn't, so I'm a little confused. But let's wait till we get there because we've got
Okay.
some line items before them.
So this is landscape. All right, so that's that. Any, you want to leave it the same, more, less? What are the feelings on that one?
Leave it the same.
Yeah, I'd leave it the same. We do have a lot of aging. We may need to do some replacements more than we have in the past.
Okay. Your electric, street lighting, water and sewer, everything's increasing about 10%. We're seeing, so that's what I did is took what you were currently budgeting and added 10% to it, which is where those numbers came from.
But I don't understand how,
Yeah.
Well, OUC,
how do we go from, if we're adding 10% to 276, which is our projected, I'm sorry.
What?
Total projected. So our total projected is now 276, is it not?
You added 10% to this year's budget, not to this year's projection.
Right. I added 10% to what you currently budget. And I wouldn't look at these, Ms. Castle, because they're not accurate.
I see.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They're not accurate until I get the most current financials. What they do is they take this number, and again, I'd have to do the math on this, but usually they'll straight line it out and tell you what your projected is, and it'll usually be right in line with this. So, and we're gonna have, but these are what we're seeing coming in is a 10% increase. And this may be over what it will be, but I'd rather you not have, or you have too much than not enough in there.
Here's the deal. At some point, you got to start cutting these numbers. And when we're not, we haven't taken anything of significance out. I would be fine with the 10% increase, but over the current projected number, not over the current budget. I think.
You want 10% of these numbers? I'm happy to put that in.
I think so, because we got to start cutting somewhere. You got $1 million.
But whether you budget electricity, street lighting and water accurately or not, it's
gonna be
coming
what
from
it's gonna
somewhere.
be.
So,
I understand, but.
Yep.
You know,
Well, when we get to cutting next, at the May meeting, when we're starting to decide about landscapers, the landscape bids, I think that, will be, some of these numbers will be coming down substantially, hopefully.
oh, absolutely. And if you see any right now that you just feel like Steve said, if you want me to change those now, I'm happy to do that. We can do that here too, whatever you all want.
I'd rather at this point budget high and then come down after the deadline when we have room to wiggle, then come in low and need to go up and won't be able to. That's just my thought in all this, because once you set that number in May and it goes into the county in June, we can't go up from that. And if something happens and we have to, I don't know where it's going to come from.
Okay. So is everybody okay with leaving these now? And obviously that may be a section you come back to when you're starting to make cuts, or I can do them now. Okay.
Yeah, I guess I have a question for Mr. Berube. If we're taking in the section above, which is landscape services, if we're not taking numbers lower than the highest number here, then why would we cut the numbers under utilities? In other words, why wouldn't we cut them at the same time? Either cut them now or cut them later.
Because we don't know what the contract numbers are going to be for the landscapers. We don't know the numbers that are going to be in the budget for the landscaper. We can't do much with until we decide on a landscaper. So that's why we skipped over them in my view. We know what we're spending this year on these utilities. We have a good long track record. And,
Well, but
and to the chairwoman's point, yeah, you'd rather budget high, but here's what's going to happen. You're going to get into that May meeting. You're going to be going line by line, just like this again, and trying to take lots of dollars out to avoid a huge fee increase. So, I'm just saying, settle these now or not. I don't know.
well, understand those projected numbers are not going to be accurate because OUC just approved a rate increase.
Correct.
And that's going to affect us this year. And then what they may increase for subsequent years, you've seen the inflation numbers. I would hate to not be able to pay our bills.
I'm not suggesting that we put ourselves in that position. I'm just.
Yeah, I'd really,
Move along, move to the next line. I'm not arguing it. I just suggested that we cut it back to 10% over this year when we have a track record of this year, and 10% should be enough. But if everybody's comfortable leaving those numbers there, leave them. We'll do what we have to do at the May meeting.
All right, I left them in green. Maybe it'll stick out to come back to. Any more questions on this utility section before I move on? Okay, communication, that's been zeroed out. Infomart provides your field staff with phones. The refuse removal, I double checked with them and Avid. I don't see any increase, nor have we received an increase from them. So I left that number the same. Repair and maintenance ponds and / Buck Lake. You're already with the things committed to Buck Lake. I think you're at 10. Yeah, 10,565. That's the 7,200 and the 3,365 already. And then, the chemicals Brad gets to treat come out of this line item. Also, I put in $5,000, or you can take 15 and 5 if you want to do plantings in your ponds. I don't know if that's something you want to do that helps them or not. So anyways, that's where that number came from. Like I said, you're already at 10,565 just with the Buck Lake. And then you add in the chemicals that Brad has to get to be able to do his part. That's where the additional monies came from in that line item.
Okay, help me understand this. So
Sure.
we've agreed to pay 50% of the monthly cost of $1,200 a month per service on Buck Lake. So that'll be 600. So that's 7,200
Correct.
for Buck Lake treatment.
Correct.
The other chemical was for a possible hydrilla treatment for ponds, since it seems like every year we end up treating at least one of our ponds for hydrilla.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that wouldn't be Buck Lake, that would be hydrilla.
Sorry, yes,
pond.
the 3,365. That is correct.
Okay. And then chemicals that Brad uses to
Mhm.
keep down some of the cattails and other aquatic weeds that we see.
Correct.
Okay.
So how is it that, I understand the 7,200 and the hydraulic treatment, but it looks like our budget and our projected is 3,500. So how did we get to an additional 7?
Because the 3,500 that you have been budgeting or currently are budgeting this year, it was literally only for the chemicals that Brad did in the ponds. It didn't incorporate your Buck Lake. It didn't incorporate the hydrilla treatments that I don't know, that had come from somewhere else. And I don't know right now off the top of my head where that was coded to, if y'all have done them in the past. But that's why that line is so low, Ms. Castle. And go ahead.
Sorry, so I'm still coming up to about, maybe about 13 or 14,000, 13,500 or 14,000 instead of 20. I just wondered where the other 6,000 was going.
Okay, so the 10,565 is the agreement that you have with Buck Lake and a hydrilla treatment, which you currently do is 3,365 if you have to do any more of those. So you're at 10,565. And then Brad's chemicals, I left it the 3. And then I put in like the note over here, $5,000 if you wanted to do plantings. I know that we've talked about it. I don't know that that's something that this board wants to do. So if it's not, then we definitely can reduce that to 15,000. That's where the extra 5 came from.
Are you talking about littoral zone plantings?
Yes.
For some of the ponds that our developer left us with no littoral zones at all?
Correct.
Okay. So that we would budget. So that would be an incremental, basically a kind of an annual program. Is that what you're talking about? You mentioned it from one of the other districts you had.
So typically what happens, and David may be able to chime in on this as well. Typically, the pond plantings, most districts will say, oh, we want to spend X amount, and you just get how many ever plants for that amount. And they'll tell you what's a priority of the ponds that need to be planted, and you just plant X amount every year if that's something you want to do. That's typically what other districts do. And again, it helps with erosion and water quality and all that stuff. But David, do you have anything to add on that?
No, the littoral zoning planting is either required when they build it because it had to meet certain permit conditions, or in most cases, they do it after the fact because of aesthetics, water quality, natural habitat for ducks and other habitat. So it's something that the communities will do for various reasons, whether it's aesthetics or water quality after the systems are built. So
Correct. So we've talked about it a couple of times. That's the only reason I put it in here. If that's not something the board's interested in, like I said, that can go back down to 15.
Thank you for the explanation.
Of course. So thoughts on this before we move on?
No, I guess just leave it at 20 for now. Just make it green.
Right.
Thank you.
Sure. Pools, I did raise because you have come in under the 32 that you had typically budgeted, but I put it to 35. You have the controller leases in here. Chemicals have gone up substantially with the pool stuff, and then any minor repairs that you have to the pools. And I know the two were just resurfaced, but that's what comes out of this line is chemicals, your controller leases, and any minor repairs.
How much are the controller leases themselves?
$95 a month.
All in or per?
She has here for both.
Yeah, it's all in, Mike.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what Kristen had here. If you look right here, that's her note for both of them.
All right. Any questions there, or
No,
it is what it is pretty much?
move on.
All right, roads and alleyways, I left that the same at 2,000. Literally, that is for just minor repairs. If they have to run out and do like a little patch job or something, that's what that number or where it came from. Sidewalks, I left it 15,000. You did do some panel replacements this year and grinding and all that, so you spent 65. I know there's still some out there to be done. But again, you have down here, which we'll get there in a little bit, but so for this,
On the project list, we have a sidewalk grinding project. It's noted as ongoing, and we have $66,000 devoted to that.
oh, 66. I put
Yeah.
65, sorry.
I'm not sure how or where that $66,000 is going to show up, or what the time frame is for getting it done.
It's gonna be right here. In your reserve sidewalk and alleyways, that's where it'll be coded to when
Okay.
the final bill does come in.
All right.
Now, I have a question about this. We do have the word reserves below, but we're including this in the operations and maintenance budget. Where
Correct.
the sidewalk replacement should be coming out of reserves and not the operations and maintenance budget.
The way this board has done it, so your general fund allocation reserve, that's where they have it listed. Or that's where it has always been listed, right here. So I'm not sure, and we can change that. We can
Well,
change the numbers, we can do all that.
So if we're taking money out of reserves and we're putting it in the operations and maintenance, then we should see in our revenue line revenue from operate or money coming in from our revenue funds
You're,
into operations and maintenance that offsets the cost below in expenses. No?
no, this isn't being transferred from your reserves. This is what past boards, whomever, whatever, if you look in 22, prior years, this has all come out of your general fund. You have allocated X amount of dollars out of your general fund to pay for these things. Like if you look here, 43,310. So sidewalk and alleyways. So y'all have done for sidewalk and alleyways. I mean, prior years you were doing this amount, then it went to this amount last year.
That's the money we're transferring over from general funds into the reserves, right?
No, it's just staying in your general fund. So what you come into the year with is an amount, right? Then here's your total. If you were to spend what you've allocated in your general fund, all this is what you would be left with operating cash. I don't know why you guys or the boards have done this, but yes, Carol, to your point, typically the way that I see it done is you have a reserve fund and there's certain things in your reserve fund that you allocate towards, like you said, panel replacements, all of that. That's a capital improvement if you're doing one fell swoop. So you would pull that or have it earmarked in your actual reserve fund. But what has been done here is assigned fund balance.
This looks like it's just for 22 and 23. I think what was happening in the past was we had minor expenses and we also didn't really have, I mean, we're just getting to the point, we're still not even there, where we really have a real reserve study. Because there were minor amounts, we weren't using our reserve or our unassigned fund balance to fund these expenses because we had enough slack in our operations and maintenance to cover it because these were minor amounts. But now we're getting to a time where we have a lot more expense and we do have reserves set aside in our unassigned fund balance. And it seems to me that if we're going to be spending these monies on things like sidewalks and alleyways, et cetera, that we should be, and I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but it seems to me that we should show revenue coming in from our unassigned fund balance to operations and maintenance, and then offsetting that, because otherwise we're having to raise fees to cover some of those costs when some of that funding is already there.
Well, it's all the same pot of money, so
Yeah.
you're not really having to raise. It's just how you're showing it. And the word reserve, as Angel has the arrow pointing to now, that's always been questionable to have reserve word in the operation and maintenance budget. And I don't remember how we got it there, but it was more so we remembered it every year and put money into it. And of course, then you got to spend money out of it, but it was more of a place mark to make sure it got funded.
Right.
But to Angel's point, having the word reserve in an operation and maintenance budget should be changed to something else.
Yes, and to Steve's point, Carol, okay, so if I just put these numbers right back in here, which I'll tell you about this in a minute, but I did use the same here. You're not assessing that. You already assessed people last year for it. So it's not like you're raising assessments for these two things. This has always been a part of your general fund, always. You just put different numbers. One year you wanted to allocate this much, the next year this much. You know, that it's not an additional unless you're changing that number. You've always, as long as I went back 5 years, and these have always been there, which ties to this. Because if I change any of those numbers, you'll see this number change. But if we were to do exactly what was in there last year, wouldn't affect your assessments at all. if we didn't change anything else. But so it doesn't increase it every year. It doesn't show as revenue coming in to offset. That's literally part of your general fund that has always been there.
But I think the amounts were considerably lower in previous years.
Well, if you look here,
They were higher.
yeah, I mean, you, in 2020, they budgeted 52,155 for this. Then the next year it went to 46. Last year you guys did 23. And then same for this one. You know, it varies every year that this has been done. And again, it's not wrong to do it this way. It's just when you see reserve, most people think about a savings account, right?
Yeah, and that's what I interpret is that this is the amount of money that's
Yeah.
coming in that we're putting into our savings account for these future.
No, this is part of your general fund. You just have it earmarked. I could change this right now to say, you know, whatever we wanted it to say, but you just have it earmarked as C general fund allocation reserve. You-
Yeah, but I think Teresa is right. I think what those amounts represent is not money we actually spent in repairs, but it's money we brought in through our operations and operations and maintenance expenses to go to our unassigned fund balance so that when we needed that money to do the repairs, it would be there.
That is accurate, but you have spent that money.
If you remember, we
But
didn't
it-
have the reserve study before. And we started with the sidewalk panels and other replacements that were needed. And the reserve study didn't show, or the reserve paperwork that we had wasn't covering what we needed. So we stuck these two lines in as placeholders. And when we got to the end of the budget year, we always put money into these two placeholders. And that's why the numbers are wacky, because if there was 52,155 left in fiscal year 20, we put it there. The next year there was 46,945 available, we put it there. On the sidewalks and alleys, we had 21,724 got plugged in there, just so we had money sitting there. And by calling it reserve, it just became a placeholder. So it didn't change assessments.
Right.
Sure, we funded those lines. That's what happened.
Yeah, so, I mean, and again, we can do this any way you want. I just followed suit with what has been done in previous years. That's all it is.
I'm not sure that 200,000 needs.
No, this is not. And the reason I put this here, is there anything that needs to be like a major thing that needs to be done? If it's an alleyway or what have you, like if you look here, sidewalks and alleyways, previous years, this is how much you've allocated there. I don't know that you've ever used that or whatever. So that's why you see this number.
So, but going back up to invasive, so we were further up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's go back to our line.
All right,
items.
so you've got sidewalks. That's where we ended. Panel replacements, you've done 66,000 fiscal year 22 in sidewalk repairs and replacements. So are you comfortable leaving sidewalks at 15,000? That would give you X amount. I mean, obviously you don't pay for the grinding, your staff does that, but panel replacements you will pay for. So leaving 15,000 in there for that,
So I'm confused. Why does it say our projected is 16,570 when you say we've already spent 66?
because it's not, the job's not done yet. It's not done. You haven't been billed for it.
I see. So we haven't actually spent 66.
Right, you approved 66,000 and the work's going on now.
Okay. All right.
So we're doing a major project right now to bring our sidewalks to ground zero.
Right.
And the possibility, so this number needs to include what possible upheavals and new replacements we may need to do. Is that a correct understanding?
Yes, that is correct.
You gotta be careful though, because the current project is going on now is going to get billed in this fiscal year. You have to remember, we're looking at a fiscal year starting 6 months from now.
Right, and that's what I'm talking about, is that we're going to ground, basically we'll be at ground zero at the start of next fiscal year. So do we think we may have $15,000 worth of panel replacements that are upheaved to a point of needing replacement in that next fiscal year?
Sounds like a question for our engineer. David?
Or our arborist?
Well, regardless, any grindings you've done at some point, those go back and they become replacements.
Right, and we had a lot of those grindings. How many grindings do we have in this go round?
Hundreds.
Brett, 800 and something.
891, and we've completed over 550 so far.
So undoubtedly, we're going to have a number of panels that get upheaved the way our trees are growing, and probably going to need to be replaced. I'm comfortable with that number at this time.
Yeah, probably need more. If only 10% of them come back as needing replaced, that's 89. And I mean, it's easily with $200 a panel, right? It is $18,000. I think the 15,000 is fine.
Yeah, let's go with it. I'd love to hear from David, but he's apparently not available.
David?
I'm here.
So the question was, is $15,000, after our current sidewalk refurbishment project, is $15,000 going to be enough to address the next fiscal year's work of sidewalk grinding and replacements?
I think it's low compared to all the trees you continue to have to grow and the trees you have in the sidewalks. I don't think it'll be 65,000 again, but I think 15 may be low considering the amount of trees we have throughout the community. And the cost of concrete continue to go up.
Yes.
We do get a bounce back, what is it, $5,000
Yes.
from our insurance company for doing
Yep.
this work. So
Yep.
that would, I don't know if we need to show this as 20 and 5,000 in revenue from insurance, or how you want to work that in the budget, Angel, but that would give us 20,000 to work from.
That's actually good. Because you will get grant money.
Okay.
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 Yes. Anybody else? Okay. Repair and maintenance. It used to say vehicles. What I did was combine this with all of your equipment. Pressure washers, blowers, UTVs, your CDD truck, all of that would come out of this line right here. Everybody okay with that? Which ultimately left it the same, but I just included everything in this line.
Okay.
It's not the purchase of new stuff, that's
Maintenance.
maintaining the stuff you have. Repairs and maintenance, RV storage lot, 20,000. I left it the same, but I don't necessarily know what goes into the maintenance of that. So does it need to be 20,000? Is there a lot of stuff that we do out there as far as maintenance?
Well, right now, almost nothing. But, the money you've spent, the money that you're showing has spent has been bringing it along to do the modifications that we're considering. But beyond that, beyond the spraying for weeds, I don't think we're doing any work.
And again, don't look at these numbers or where you're going to end, because again, they take sometimes what you've spent or what the budget is, and then they just flatline it across 12 months and they tell you that's what you're projected to do. So that's why I don't like these numbers sometimes, because they do flatline stuff.
I guess, Angel, depending if the board moves forward with the RV storage lot project,
Mhm.
this might go away because it'll be It'll be fenced, but it's still an unpaved surface. I'm not sure if they grade it once a year or if they do anything out there besides,
All they do is spray for weeds.
that's it.
Okay, so if this is truly just your repair and maintenance of the RV storage lot, then I don't think you need $20,000 in there.
No. You could easily cut that to 5 and be safe at this point.
You okay with 5, everyone?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Roger that.
thank you. Equipment, your repair and maintenance for your boats. You had it at 6, I put it at 10. There are some things that need to be done to the boats, trolling motors, recovering your upholstery. I know Vincent got a quote from someone to redo the pontoon boat upholstery for just under $500. But there are trolling motors. Brett, was there something else that needed to be done? I thought there was a boat that needed to be repaired or brought up to something.
We got some, we're looking at some battery,
Replacement.
I think, pardon?
A regulator system to preserve
Yeah,
our batteries, to keep us
Batteries,
from,
and then there's, one of the, I think one of the bass boats has some decking that Teresa had mentioned earlier. Was it a bass boat, Teresa, or
the small pontoon boat. The old pontoon boat is just in a deplorable condition.
So regardless, that's why I brought that from 6 to 10. I don't know that 10's enough, but I think maybe it's a good starting point to get some things accomplished when it comes to the boats. Again, if you disagree, tell me now, raise it, lower it, leave it the same, whatever you feel.
Looks good for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Parks and facilities. You budgeted 25, I left it at 25. Other things that would come out of here that I know the board has talked about, resurfacing the courts, any equipment and basically any needs, which are I think your bathhouses, any stuff like that would come out of this. Your dog park, if there's got to be anything done there, it would come out of this. So again, I think Vincent also did get some resurfacing quotes. Brett, do you know what those are? Thought it was like 8,000 or something.
Yeah, I think it was anywhere from $8,000 to $9,000 to resurface. Vincent's on. Vincent, can you confirm?
Oh,
Hello, everybody hear me?
yes.
Yes, right. Well, actually, I've been following up the last company because we already have 2 quotes. So this is supposed to receive the last one for the next week. So this is under 8,000, but between the first quotes.
Okay, so you've got about $8,000 if you wanted to resurface the courts, and then obviously any other equipment and just repairs and maintenance to anything park, bathrooms, all that kind of stuff.
Actually, in that kind of a quote, this is including the repair, the cracks, and the water spots,
Oh, okay.
leveling. Yeah, this is all included in this amount.
Perfect. All right, is everybody comfortable with that number?
I'm good.
I could see it going down by 5,000, but it's only 5,000, so
To 20?
nobody would be.
Yeah, this includes all of our doggy bags, any replacement of doggy stations, the trash bags, all just any and all equipment. If we have to replace a swing or anything like that, it comes out of this. A bench, I think we may have seen a bench go down recently, and any equipment to fix the park benches and things all comes out of this.
Okay, all right, let's leave it then.
Garden lot, 5,000. Obviously, we don't do anything in there, except for, I think you're responsible for the wooden things, what are they called?
Boards. Plot
Boards.
boards.
Thanks.
The boards, the beds.
Beds, yeah, that's it.
Yes.
Carol.
So I don't know if, I mean, and plus they use what they bring in to offset the other stuff they need. So I don't necessarily know that 5,000 is needed there. I don't know what you want to put in there, but
Maybe put in 2,000?
okay,
Yeah, that's fine.
That sounds good.
right? So this one, invasives, you didn't have a line item for this. Essentially, I had put in what you're currently paying, which is 194,000 and change. And I put the note here, you know, are there any more areas like that that you want to treat? I've since found out that currently you don't own them, or you don't have control of them. I don't necessarily own, might be a questionable statement, but so what I did here is took at least 50% of this contract that we're currently just entered for invasives. And I put 50% here because 50% of the payment, the final payment, will come out with your new budget cycle, because he's not even starting until June, and then it's X amount of months and treatments. So at bare minimum, you need to account for at least half of that contract, which is 97,000. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, now, that doesn't include any of the Kogan grass that's cropping up in any of our areas.
Nope.
That comes under landscaping miscellaneous, I think.
That, I think you're right, Carol. I think that's the perfect place for that. So never mind,
Yeah.
let's move on.
Hogan
Well,
grass.
Field is treating the Kogan grass in-house, so that would fall under Brad's material cost.
Okay.
Right. So we can leave that in there.
Leave it here, put it with pond and,
No, I just leave it there
okay,
because it's not a pond or it's an upland.
okay. So we want to leave this here, or do we need to change it? Do you assume any big projects when it comes to invasives being done?
I hope not.
Yeah. 200,000 bucks already. Hope not.
Yeah, it's painful, but I mean, it is what it is. Okay, what is the light poles?
So repair and maintenance light poles, you did we did an audit. There are light poles out there that need to be replaced or repaired. OUC, you do have a maintenance, there is a maintenance portion, but they're not going to come out and do the poles. That's for the lights, the bulbs, if a globe breaks, something like that. If the pole gets totally taken out by a car accident or something like that, they will come out and put in a new pole. But for maintenance, where the cracks and that kind of stuff, they're not going to replace those. You do need to start budgeting something for it. I don't necessarily know that it has to be $10,000. What I typically do in other districts is when we have one that needs to be repaired, I will send the pole number to the electric company and tell them, hey, we have a crack here or this or that, and see. Sometimes I've been lucky to get them. A technician will just come out and do it, whoever it's assigned to. And then sometimes I've definitely gotten them back and go, no, we don't cover that. So it's hit or miss on that aspect of it, but you definitely need to budget something. Again, I don't know that it's $10,000, but you definitely have light poles out there that need to be addressed.
Why would we budget money to repair poles that don't belong to us?
Okay.
I mean, if it's a safety issue, that's an issue that OUC needs to address. If it looks bad, I mean, I don't see us spending any money on something that is not ours. That's just my.
Well, for all intents and purposes, it is yours. You just don't own it. It's a lifetime lease, and then it turns over. You pay the electric. But if you read all the contracts, and then I had to call and talked to numerous people about it to see what exactly, because you are being charged a maintenance fee, but again, it's, we're coming out, changing lights that are out. If the globe gets broken or something like that, but not to replace the existing poles if they're cracked, if anything like that. If they want to, if you want them clean, just aesthetically yourself as a community, want them to look better, repaint any of that, OUC is not going to cover any of that. If somebody can call them and get a different answer, I welcome it.
Oh, I think your answer is accurate. I don't see spending $1 on a pole that is not ours. That's just.
Well, the question comes in is what happens at the end of the contract, which is coming up pretty quickly? Do they then become ours at the end of the contract? I understand that most contracts have a buyout clause for $1.
Yep.
At the end of the contract, the community pays $1 and they own them. If that's the case, wouldn't it behoove us to take care of what we've got? Because going back and repairing all of those or replacing them, I don't even want to think about that, Bill.
Or is the other option that they stay under an maintenance program with the power company?
Forever.
I don't know.
They'll always have the maintenance, but again, that is for the light itself. They'll come out and, you know, change out the bulb if it blows out. Some are changing them as they go out, changing them to LED versus what is currently in them, that they're going to be doing throughout a period of time. I'm happy to do whatever you want in this section. I'm also happy to put together all the information, who I've spoken to and all that stuff, so the board can see what happens at the end of your contract with each one, because each contract started at a different time. So.
All right, let's just leave it in there and we can always take it out at the end of the month.
Turned it green.
All right.
Miscellaneous services. Again, there's been nothing coded to this at all. So don't pay attention to these two numbers. I don't really know what this is for other than, oh, it is. I'm sorry. It's draining the holding tank for your district trailer.
Are they draining it? We haven't paid anything. I'm a little worried about the capacity in the holding tank right now.
Vincent, do you know anything about that? Brett, anything? I know nothing about it except for Kristen's notes that Helena provided to me.
I'm not aware of it. We can have Vincent give him a call and see about emptying it.
Okay.
Right.
There was a service that used to come out, Kincaid. He didn't like that he couldn't get paid electronically and decided not to come anymore. And
Okay.
at that point, we couldn't find anybody else who wanted to come out and empty it. And I believe that the system in that trailer gets very limited use, which creates very limited amount of material in the tank. That's my understanding.
Well, we may want to check it
Okay.
before we have an overflow problem.
We'll look into it.
All right, now, can we change that from miscellaneous services to maybe put it up with a trailer rental or field services housing or something? You know, it shouldn't just be hanging out there.
Comfort services, how about that?
Didn't we have it up here, field trailer?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's line
we've got it in the
105.
field.
Line
Oh,
105.
right here.
So you could either add an additional line after trailer rental or servicing or tank drainage.
There you go.
I like that.
So what did they, it was 1,100?
100.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was that 71? Will that cover it?
That should do it.
What? No, it's 80.
No.
It's 8,000, it's 81.
Oh, yeah,
8,100.
8,100.
8,100?
Let's give it 85. Who knows what we're gonna be charged to drain it now?
Then I can delete this out, right?
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
whole line.
Okay. This is the 8,000 for the mitigation or to mitigate certain invasive chemical and equipment-based process. That's what this number is for.
So are we still doing that even this coming fiscal year, even if we're having those, the contract for the invasives?
Yeah, your staff's gonna have to go behind and keep up with it. I don't know how soon though, because this treatment kind of goes over a period of time.
Well, yeah, within 6 months of their completion of the 3-stage treatment, Brad will have to go out and inspect all those areas for regrowth and retreat wherever needed. It should be hopefully minimal, but that will be needed. These will never go away completely, unfortunately.
I know, I just didn't know if in fiscal year 22, we were gonna need to spend that money on invasive.
Yeah, not at this point, not anymore this fiscal year, but next fiscal year, they should be finished in, I'd say December or January of 2020, January of 2023. So he'll have to pick up after that. I don't know that he'll need, whether he'll need that much of a line item for chemicals or not. So I don't know, but I wouldn't want it hanging out here. I'd rather put it under,
Can I just change this
Yeah.
to
Invasive treatment?
Yeah, we had one above for invasive, didn't we?
well, that's contract based, the large number
mhm.
right
Okay.
here.
Yeah.
But this is gonna be your staff invasive treatment.
Right.
Well,
So
we could just add that amount to the R&M invasives.
we can do that too.
That would be easier. And then just put a note that it's for and follow-up and staff follow-up.
So 105.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
0. And you want follow-up?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Took that one out. Security, 5,700. This includes your Bride House at $225 a month, and you also had a $3,000 contingency for equipment, TVs, cameras, any of that stuff that you wanted. I don't know if that has been done, or we're waiting to do it, or you want to drop this number. Not
Isn't that for cards and stuff?
Yes, and cards, cameras, TV, cards, and equipment was set
Wait a
in
minute.
your contingency.
We had cards up above.
No,
That
this
was
is,
income.
that's revenue.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Never mind.
Yeah, because Steve was saying the printer is gonna be going soon. So it includes the printer, the ink,
Right.
the tape, the cards, et cetera. So I don't know how much you said the printer's on its last legs. I don't know how much the printer is.
Then you may have to increase that.
No,
Yeah.
it was about $1,700 or $1,800 when we bought it. When we first, this Carol, how good's your memory? When did we start with cards? 6 years ago, 7 years ago? You remember?
At least, I think.
It was right at the beginning of field services, which was 16, 15, somewhere around there. So that printer is 6 or 7 years old. I don't know what its anticipated lifespan is, but it's probably done thousands of cards. It apparently still works. Vincent, you use it every day. What's your thought on how that printer works and such?
Well, actually, it's been working good, so I don't have any issues with him up right now.
Good news. Okay, thank you.
Well, let's just leave it as it is then.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's probably okay.
Fuel and oil and operational supplies, I increased from 4 to 7 with all your price increases with gas and oil and everything else. If you feel that's too much, I can lower it back, but that's where I took that number.
So does this number, it just says fuel and oil, but is it including, like, where are the costs? I mean, most of the costs for, that are incurred or go to, parks and facilities, or like they're assigned to different places. So you're putting like a 40, no, it's more than that. It's like a 65 or so percent, 70% increase for fuel
Yes.
and oil.
It's not only fuel and oil, it's operational supplies. So anything that the field staff would need, for the trailer, any of that stuff. And yes, fuel and oil. That's all that should come here. Any operational supplies, fuel and oil. So if you think that's too much, let me know. I can put it back down to 4. I can adjust it to whatever you'd like.
Well, depending on what vehicles we get to replace the 2 that have been demolished, if we get electric, then I would think we could leave it at 4. But with the fluctuation in fuel prices,
Mhm.
I think you're gonna end up with 1 electric and 1 diesel. I'd be comfortable with that at $5,000.
okay, I'm good with 5.
Yeah.
5, okay. Capital outlay, you used to budget something there. It has since been taken out, so I didn't add anything there at all.
That the swing set?
Now, capital outlay was typically,
Playground, I think.
Yeah, that
Sidewalk
playground
grinder.
equipment that we,
Yeah, the big stuff.
Okay,
we're not planning on replacing any playground equipment in the near future, right?
Yeah.
okay. Your capital outlay, it looks like,
Well, vehicles, we skip vehicles.
that's what I meant, sorry. Capital outlay vehicles. You have 30,000 budgeted for 22. I kept it the same. Bob Concar's email as of 5/27 was stated it was for 2 UTVs. So I don't know what that means. I wasn't there at that point, so I left it in here. So I don't know what you want to do there.
That was the intent.
Well, we have to replace the 2 that were wrecked.
Correct.
So that would come out of this. And then whatever insurance reimbursement for the older ones that were wrecked would come in as income, right?
Correct.
So I'd leave it at 30 at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay. Again, another capital outlay with nothing listed. You had this, I'm assuming that was a one-time project you all did.
That was
Streetlights.
streetlights.
Mhm.
MPV future debt service payments for VC1. Huh,
Oh, that was a placeholder to show that we were not getting any more debt service from VC1 since
Yep.
the CDD accepted it.
that is exactly what the note says, so, okay. So that's why that's not there. Reserve, again, we went through this a little bit earlier. So here, why I changed it was if you need to do anything, if there are large projects that you have coming that you want to allocate anything to, that's where we would put it. I can drop it back down to the 23,040. But if you're gonna put something in here, I mean, I feel that it needs to be for something you're gonna do.
Yeah, but again, as Steve was saying, what happened was when we would do our budget, when we had a excess of revenue over expenses, then we would slot that number in that reserve line item, in those reserve line items, so that we were setting money aside for reserves. Or at least we were, that we were accounting for that. So it wasn't what we were actually spending in work. So if we're going to put that, if we're going to spend what we're doing in work, then we should probably do what we haven't done, which is in revenue, show how money is coming in from unassigned fund balance into operations and maintenance to pay for it. Does that make sense?
It
So
doesn't, it doesn't come in as revenue. You have at the end, you have, I'll tell you, obviously you'll see it on your financials where here's your fund balance, right? What you end with, and what you have over or under, which would be here at the end of the fiscal year, then you can determine what you want to do with it, but it doesn't get funneled back into as far as revenue. But it's there for you to allocate wherever. If we did a major project and you're going to be over budget by 100,000 because we had to do an emergency project that wasn't budgeted for, at the end of the year, we know we're going to have 150,000 in unassigned fund balance that's been carried over, then we'll be able to pull from that. But it's not going to come in as revenue to show against anything, if that makes sense.
I have a question for the chairwoman. Where do we stand with the reserve study? Because this is tied to this line item. Somebody said earlier, the reserve study is not finished yet or something. Where are we with that?
So the reserve study, and David might be able to chime in more on this.
So it was agreed upon
Okay.
before he issued a final copy to get some real bids. So he can adjust his unit cost to be more realistic for capital projects. We do have the milling and resurfacing on the street right now for bids. We got Garden Road bids. We may release the one for the RV storage. So it was to provide him some real numbers versus we've all been guessing the last couple months on contractors' costs. And so that's the only thing he has left to do.
Okay,
Okay.
so this was a placeholder, as Carol mentioned, and if we had the reserve study, then we'd know better whether we need to put money in reserves or not, rather than just a placeholder. But it sounds like we're not really there yet, right?
Right. But even if we take the numbers that he currently has in the drafts, we could look at those. Those are still going to be low compared to what we're seeing come back in bids. So that would be like the best case scenario to give us a little buffer. My concern here is that we've gone through this entire budget and nowhere in it does it talk about where we're getting the money for the alleyway repaving, or if we go ahead with the Garden Road and almost $500,000 we need for that Garden Road and the RV lot, where are we going to get that $1 million?
That's the problem with going down through this and not taking anything out, because you need to take something out if you want to fund those projects. Or you
have to take a whole lot out if you're going to
Yeah.
fund those projects out of a current budget without adding
You
anything
have
to
to
it.
take half of it out. And I don't see where we take half of it out.
No.
So,
If you go down to available, Angel, go back to the fund balances, so the reserve. Yeah, what's there, 1 million?
1,000,004.
1,000,004.
But if you're looking at this,
let's look at this year.
yeah, 22. And again, these are all projections that aren't even accurate for the most part. But you'll have 1.4, but if you look here,
Yes, I know.
Okay, so you have to have almost 700,000 just for your first quarter operating capital. That comes out essentially right off the bat. So out of that 1.4 that we're just talking about, you've got this that automatically comes out.
700,000 left.
Whatever we put here, that I had 200 stuck in there just as a number, whatever you put there is going to come out. And then your sidewalk and alleyways of this would come out because that's what you have scheduled here. And then uninsured repairs, that would come out, and it would leave you with this of unassigned cash at the end of the fiscal year outside of your operating. Does that make sense?
That doesn't even pave the alleyways, much less do the garden road and the RV storage lot.
Correct.
The saving grace here is that they plugged in the highest landscape numbers into this proposed budget. Am I correct, Angel? You used the highest numbers?
I did. And you know what? I mean, we're almost done here. And if you want, just to see for all intents and purposes, I can go back to this and put in, let's just say, whatever, hypothetically, if you're going to choose the lowest bidder, I can go in and plug this in and see how much that actually shaves off if you're wanting to see that difference.
I did that earlier. I used the median, which was about 720,000 versus 978. So you had about 250 if you use the median bid to add to the number you just showed there. That's just the median, right? If you go with the cheapest, you got another 100,000 there, give it to.
So currently, if you were to go with the highest with everything that I did, you're looking at a landscape contract of 1.225 million, 1,225,033. If you go with those numbers, that's what your landscape contract's going to be, over $1 million.
Well, so this shows 1.3, right? 1.33. And what I took a look at was not the lowest and not the highest. And I came out at about 900,000 instead of 1.33. So that's a savings of over $400,000 right there.
Yeah, you're going to be able to chunk out a lot determining on who you go with, unless you go with absolutely the highest bidder, obviously. But everything that I have highlighted here that would entail your landscaping in general is going to be $1,225,033.
Cadillac plan.
What?
For the Cadillac plan. I mean,
there you go.
That's the whole wish list there.
So you will shave a bunch here, but I don't know that it's going to be enough to do what you need to do. You know, and again, you budget accordingly, you do what you can within that fiscal year and move on. I mean, there's different ways to look at this. So.
And again,
Hey, one thing to keep in mind too in the landscape, the mulch, that's 2 applications. So you can cut that number in half right there and you save 2 applications. You only get 1. So, it's a big number, but another, when you combine all of them, that's a, keep that in mind.
That's another 64,000 in terms of the numbers that I was looking at. So that's almost $500,000 right there.
What was the annuals, Brett? What was the rotations on that?
that's 12,000.
Yeah.
The highest annual total was 14,000.
No, how many applications?
There's 4.
4? Okay. So that's
We
the
talked
number.
about 2 perennials, but we haven't priced that out yet.
All right. So that includes that. So there is a lot you can shave in there when you get to that point on the 26th. Trying to look at anything else that you could possibly save. I mean, obviously I need to adjust this number to whatever you all want for renewal and replacement.
Yeah, and just remember there, the projects that are coming up that are going to be must-dos, unless we're just going to drop them all together. Again, if we go a different direction on the RV storage lot, if we don't want to replace the fence up front, if we want to just take it down and not have a white fence, if I don't know what else we can drop. The alleyways are big because we've got this alleyway that'll zero out our reserves for alleyways, but we have more alleyways coming up and looking us in the face. I don't want to look at a big rate increase, but the problem is unlike cities and counties that are in the same business we're in, we haven't had any increases whatsoever. Their revenue increases every time the home values go up and there's turnover in home values. They get phenomenal increases, but we have had no increases in what? Except to pay off the lighting in 10 years?
Yep.
And that's been unsustainable. And now we're paying the piper.
Well, at the same time, we've continued to have fiduciary responsibility, and we've made very good decisions in the past. Past boards have, for example, what you just mentioned was the street buyout that saved a significant amount of money that wasn't at first was not, it was budgeted for the entire term of the lease. So actions like that throughout the years have allowed the board to maintain significant reserves. So I don't know. I mean, I agree that over time, rates do increase and revenue has to accompany it. But I just don't know that. For example, I don't agree with the repaving of the alleys. I think that there's something that can be fixed, repaired, and maintained. I don't know that we have to strip them, and it would be lovely to have new alleys, but is it necessary? So just, it's not too dissimilar from a house budget when I look at it. The numbers are bigger, the items are more, but in my house, I can't, I have a list, but I can't just go out and ask people to give me money so that I can, or ask my boss for more money so that I can, get my projects done.
Right, but
At
you
a
patch the
certain
hole in
point-
your roof before it becomes a problem,
Yeah, but that's
damaging the items
right, but-
underneath and rotting the wood, right?
Sure, but that's taken into account from the very beginning, and money set aside a little by little to cover that. But I aside from one other person, and I'm not trying to predict anybody's intent whatsoever. I'm just stating an observation that until just recently, I have not heard anybody talk about what we can do to cut costs or to cut back. Everything is just, how do we spend more money and do more things? It just may not be possible, that's all.
But we have to maintain harmony.
Okay, but we don't have
I'd
to,
point to the
we don't have to,
drainage. I point to the drainage in the estates. I mean, there's kind of goes against the idea that we have been able to keep up with everything.
okay,
Yeah.
I get it, but that was just something that was recently brought to our attention, right? I mean, this was not a known issue for
Well,
the beginning, for many years, but we're talking, the wetland, the weed mitigation. I mean, do we need to spend $200,000 on it?
We're required by certain entities to address that, and we haven't, even though we've been trying to deal with it, we have not been successful, and now we're being required to take more decisive action, and it's very costly because we were able to do ourselves wasn't sufficient.
Well, I don't, to what extent though? I mean, it wasn't sufficient. What do? They tell us it's not sufficient? I mean, at the end of the day, we're progressing, we're attempting to take care of the matter. What are they gonna do? I mean, it's not like we're neglecting it and
It's an obligation that's been placed upon us. And again, there are things we'd like to go back and change that the developer laid at our doorstep. But this is the job that we have been entrusted to do and to meet all of those obligations. And we need to step forward and do them. I hate the thought of raising prices or assessments, but in reality, you know, the costs keep going up. Every time we delay maintenance, it costs us more and more down the road. We're just digging Harmony in a huge hole. And the estates issues, if you talk to the folks in the estates, they brought them to the attention of the board in the past, and the board dismissed them. And, you know, it's not something we can sweep under the rug. It's, again, the responsibility.
I get it, but the point is, we can't do it all at once. We can't do it all right now. So, I mean, whether
This
we have
isn't
to.
all. Take a look at that reserve study. My God, it's daunting.
We're only doing things that, you know, either have been neglected in the past or we need to do now, because if we don't do them now, it's going to be more expensive later. And it's already, you know, I mean, some of the alleyways, we talked about doing that a couple of years ago and we put it off then. Now it's a couple of years later, it's getting worse and it's more expensive. It's not like continuing to put it off is going to save us money.
I understand, but at the end of the day, it's an alleyway. It's not a thoroughfare. It's just for people to get to their garage or to park in their driveway in the rear. So why can't it be repaired? I don't understand why we need entire new pavement back there. It just doesn't make sense to me. And so the thing is, this is what people tell me when I'm out in public and it's unsolicited and they come to me. Now, why they don't show up to these meetings and vocalize it, I have no idea. So to that respect, the board is going to have to make a decision without input from these people who tell me one thing in public, but they don't show up. But I'm just vocalizing what I'm hearing out there. So.
Thank you, Mike. I'd like to hear from David about whether or not the alleyways need refurbishment at this point.
We can continue, we haven't started yet, but we can Band-Aid the worst areas and then just continue to do that year after year as some of the surfaces begin to deteriorate. There are a lot of places when it rains, the water does not end up in the inlet. It ends up, you know, somewhere else and it just stays there and deteriorates the pavement. It's whether or not we do a proactive milling resurfacing to give it another, 10 years of life, or do we just kind of, I say, pothole repair it as problems keep coming up? Is that more efficient in the long run? I'd have to look at that and see whether or not we spend a little bit every year versus if we do it right this year or next year, and then that will keep it in good shape for the years to come. But
that seems like we get about a 15-year lifespan is what I think was in the reserve study, if I recall. My concern is the cracks are growing wider and wider. It's starting to pothole, chipping out. We're going to get the base degraded, and the cost of having to pull it up and do a major base repair. David, you could tell us what that looks like.
I mean, we have a high groundwater problem in some of these areas. So when the groundwater is too high and it continues to stay within the subbasin base, it deteriorates its structural strength, and then you start getting the pavement failure. Some people will do what they call pavement cores to see how bad the overall structural integrity of the system is. But if we need to, obviously, when you add up all the capital projects that Angel's gonna get to, I mean, it blows this reserve and annual budget projection out the window, so.
Yes.
So we have to make some tough decisions as a group, I guess, between now and the 26th, how much we're gonna table, how much we're gonna move forward. And can we limp along with just spot repairs in the alleyways or do it right? And I agree with Mike. I mean, I do a lot of public speaking in city council and county commission meetings. And I hear people bitch and moan all the time in the street, but I ask them to please show up and voice your concern, and they never show up. So it's frustrating. But this is the society we live in at this point, and so it's easier to complain to somebody walking the alleyway versus moving forward and voicing their support or opposition to what we're trying to do here as a board to move forward with infrastructure repairs. And
Yeah, I've heard just the opposite. I mean, I've heard a couple of people, well, several select people on Facebook complaining about budget things that they're not even educated on. But I've heard a lot of people also complaining about our crumbling infrastructure and how bad Harmony is getting to be, and that they want to go back to where it used to be. And why aren't we maintaining the things that we have? And again, if we just let them go downhill, the cost to fix them later is going to be dramatically more. You know, here we're talking about two projects. We can choose one or the other. One is the, you know, making an RV storage area and improving all that to the tune of about $500,000 versus the alley repaving, which looks like may come in at about $500,000. You know, which of those two do you do, or do you do neither of them?
So my thought on those two, and they're valid, but my thought on those two are the alleyways I've already spoken of, and it's subjective and the hypothetical that they're going to cost significantly more down the road. I mean, they're alleyways. You take up the surface, you remill it. I mean, I don't think it's going to be significantly more. Maybe it is more, but not significant. Let's go to the garden path though, the RV lot. My thought on that is, if that road is taken care of, if that RV lot is complete, it just might hypothetically draw in more users, which is in turn revenue for the CDD. So.
Right, and we estimated, I know you weren't here last meeting, but the estimated revenue maxing that lot out, if we get the demand to max it out, will be approximately $50,000 a year. That means it's going to be about 10 years before we even pay off the capital cost, much less the operation and maintenance cost of maintaining it over that 10-year period.
Sure, but there's no payback on the alley.
But the alleys are something we're obligated for homeowners.
Yeah, to what extent? That's my whole point. It's for garbage trucks and for people to get to their driveway. I don't know.
And we have our expert engineers input on it. I mean, we can weigh that against our own thoughts on the matter. My question was, at the last meeting, we I guess Junior Davis owes us some work on that Garden Road, and there's going to be the outstanding question of what was the, I guess, kind of the was there a threshold depending on what is actually down that road being used that would trigger a new level of maintenance required by us to satisfy the county. I don't know if we had any answers on that yet.
kind of related, Dan, it was if you're gonna put the money into the RV lots, and if you're gonna keep the field services on that road, they're gonna want an address, and for fire protection, if the county's gonna provide fire protection, they want the typical section we have now. If you decide to either do away with the RV or move it to a different location, then can we do with a lesser roadway just to serve field services only? And again, these are decisions, I guess, between now and the 26th. You all have to make on the fate of that area. For field services, the garden club, the road, the RV storage area.
And this is maybe out of left field. Is there any possibility of utilizing the road that's going to the golf maintenance facility? I mean, what would need to happen to utilize that as the path to get back to our area back there versus the pipeline road? Is that even an option within the scope of the PD? Just someone asked me, I don't know if that's even something
No,
to be
I think
considered or not.
Teresa and I looked at that, I think several months ago. There are some wetland impacts, if I remember correctly,
Right.
and or a pond to crisscross, not insurmountable, but we maybe have to revisit that to see if we can have that roadway shared between golf maintenance, the RV storage access. But I think there was one wetland impacts, if I recall correctly.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, there's some conservation area in between there. The other problem is, I don't think you're gonna wanna, I don't think, one, we'll have to get the golf folks to agree to it. Which I don't know that will happen, because again, you're bringing RVs through their work areas, and the turning radiuses and things aren't real great down in there. And the only place you could jump off where you'd avoid a wetland is basically through the field services trailer.
Okay. Well, and we had, discussed maybe another option for that. So maybe there's a way to have our cake and eat it too there.
Yeah, the county did say, I looked at the PD, and I think Angel spoke with some folks in the county, that if we did want to move field services up to the town center area on property we already own, we can do that.
Correct.
That is permitted. We wouldn't have to change any PDs or anything.
Correct.
And that way we could position it right off of an existing roadway. So
I got that area blown up. If you want to share the screen, Angel, or also y'all can move on if you want. So.
You can share.
Do you have to let me, or do you have to grant me permission?
Yeah, I can do.
Oh yeah, whoever's sharing now would have to stop.
There you go. Go ahead.
All right. So there is a potential pond impact here or a potential wetland impact here, depending how we want to wind this road through to get to the RV storage area. Or extend the cul-de-sac through the wetland area, but
yeah, you can't do that. There's no way RVs are coming down Feathergrass with all the parking on that road.
Yeah.
so to ponder between now and next meeting, so.
Yeah, I mean, I have pushed this one 18 ways towards the center, and
Right.
unless
I guess why the question was, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, unless we're able to come down and actually through the golf operations area, and then down through, right through where the trailer is.
I have a question.
There's no harm in asking. Oh, go ahead, Carol.
They are currently developing this M neighborhood on the lower left side of the screen, are they not? They will have a roadway that goes through there. I wonder if it's possible to, it looks like maybe maybe we can cross over through that neighborhood into, cross over the pipeline?
Yeah, a 90-degree crossing. Yeah, that's what we would like to happen, but we don't know how long it's going to take them to do that. It may be a significant number of years before that happens, but that would be the ideal. To bring those RVs in through that location and do a 90-degree cross of the pipeline and into the current RV area.
So did we establish, and sorry if I'm repeating, so I mean, there's some, I guess a threshold for the county saying that they would need to provide service back there for fire rescue. So if we move the CDD trailer, would just the garden back there necessitate that? Would just the, if we still had like a landscaping storage area, did we get any more guidance on just how much would we have to give up back there and not have to fully build up the road, maybe while we wait for M to come online?
I'm pretty confident, Dan, if the RV storage gets moved and the trailer gets moved, we can just come with a glorified driveway to the garden club.
Yeah. That's what the county said in the past, as long as it's just recreational gardening and storage of debris, that's not a problem. Their concern is, having an office trailer down there and having RVs that could potentially be a fire hazard or a fire issue.
Yeah, I mean, firsthand, I know people that, have used the storage area in the past, and just the condition of the road and all that, lack of security have, been reasons for them not doing so anymore. I definitely would agree with, if you build it, that will come. I mean, I've got a camper trailer. I'd like to, maybe keep it, down the street instead of, a few miles away. I'm in favor of, like we've been discussing, maybe to do a wait and see approach with if there's a better way to get into there, whether it's through M or if we can come up with something with the golf club sharing their road. Those are my thoughts.
Dan, what's your concern? Is the turning radius?
Well, I mean, that's whoever's using, they're going to have, we can arrange the parking lot, the parking spaces in there, to provide turning radius for people to get in and out. The question is, with whatever approach we end up using, we're not going to, we're going to have to make sure that we're still allowing for that same size vehicle to get in and out. Yeah, I'm not, that seems, more, smaller details to be worked out later. It's the bigger question of what and when and how soon and how much does it cost. Those are the bigger issues I'm worried about.
Yeah, the thing is the roadway that we would have, the road improvements we'd have to do, Mike, would cost us, what was it, $243,000?
They need to get fire rescue back there.
And then to get fire rescue, and then the fencing and the landscaping and the other improvements the county requires is another about $100,000.
Correct.
So we're looking at $350,000 as a starting point. Then if you add the security cameras and the lighting, solar powered lighting for security and things like that, then it continues to go up.
Don't forget, as we discuss this area, that the landscapers figure into this, because their storage area is at the end of that garden road. And I'm sure that as we get into the contract with a selected landscaper, they're going to want facility to overnight their vehicles here, supplied by us. Something to consider as we talk about this road and general vicinity.
Right, well, my understanding, and again, we'd have to double check with the county on that. I know the garden road is, or the garden, community garden itself is no problem at all. We are not obligated to make any other additional
Correct.
changes for that to be in
Right.
compliance. I don't think the storage area is a problem because there is no actual physical occupied structure there or any massive, it's not a large storage of vehicles. But the office trailer is a concern for the fire folks, as is a concentration of stored boats and RVs.
Well, we'd have to balance that against the cost of moving the trailer. I know we had to do that recently, so we should have, some rough idea what we're balancing against there. With Junior Davis, owing us, I guess, some repair of the road, do we know scope and schedule for that? Like the repairs that they're going to be doing, is that enough to kind of string along if it is just the garden and landscaping storage back there? I hate kicking the can down the road, but would that do for now?
I think we should at least try and push for them to do that. That was in our agreement to give them that easement to do that interconnect.
Right.
So
We also gave them the opportunity, Dan, to bid on the project, and they chose not to because of their workload, so.
So, and again, that was not J.R. Davis, but the folks who came forward. Now, my concern is that the way it was legally written up, the question is, whose responsibility is that? The easement ended up going to Toho, but one of the requirements of granting that easement to Toho on behalf of the developer is that the developer would grade that road. So since his development agent right now is J.R. Davis or Junior Davis, then we would hope that they would just bring one of their graders over and fix the road for us. But that we need to reach out to them to get that done. We're way far afield from our budget, though. I'm sorry, guys, but it's late.
All right, I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, David.
Again, these are two serious issues we have to look at that are not calculated into our budget. If, the possibility is we may have enough in reserves for one of those. But the question then lies, we drain that reserve, we need to be starting to seriously look at building it back up because of the other projects that are just down the road. And again, nobody wants to raise rates, but we're going to need, when we get back together at our meeting in May 26th, to set a number. Angel, do you want to go over what the options on those numbers are? Angel? Are you muted?
Maybe she stepped away. It has been almost 3 hours.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, it's about time for all of us to step away, but so I think she sent us a packet that showed what an increase would look like.
These are new numbers that.
It's right here.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I couldn't find the unmute button. So if you, at the number we have in here, just say you want to leave that. If you look here, this is what shows as your increase. Just for operation and maintenance. Overall, it would be this, when debt service is filtered in. Does that make sense? Operation and maintenance, this is overall with your debt.
So approximately half of our assessments are debt.
Yes, yes. So that's what it looks like with, like I said, these exact numbers. You know, and I don't know, because we never really discussed it. If you are all of the consensus that yes, assessments need to increase, you know, maybe the better way is to determine what number is tolerable for that, and we can always back into things based off of that. I was trying to look and see what your last increase was, but I couldn't get it to pull up.
Angel, that increase is just based on this detailed spreadsheet you've gone over the last couple of hours, not the future projects, correct?
That is correct. And that's the other thing that I have pulled up here. Let's
To answer
see.
your question, Angel, the last rate increase was 2015 of a couple of points. It was intended to raise money to launch the streetlight buy downs, which it did. We completed the buy downs,
Mhm.
put the rate back down by that 2% by 2018 or 2019. So there really hasn't been a rate increase here in a decade.
10 years.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. All right. I was only going to go back 5, so that's good. Wow, that's awesome. Okay. So here's your outstanding project list that I sent you all. Tells you the cost and tells you where it is in the thing, but that was $3,188,844. And if you look, all of these you put on hold. And then, oh, not this
Okay.
one. This isn't the right one, is it?
No.
No, that's not what you sent us. I don't remember
And
seeing.
I think the invasive
is.
treatments may be in there twice.
That's what she sent us.
No, that is what I sent, I
Yep.
thought.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
That's
3,188,000.
accurate, right, David?
Yeah, this is current.
Yeah, it's correct.
Okay, are we sure that the invasive treatment is not in there
But I'm
twice?
looking, there's one.
There's 2 different invasive treatments listed.
I put the oil climbing for at the top.
Top line.
Yeah, see, it's in there twice.
Where's the second
It's
entry?
the 200,000 at the
line,
very
the
top
first
and the
line.
194 down there.
Right here, David, the first in this one, I
Oh.
put it in here of the actual contract. So yeah,
Yeah.
It'll take
And
it
you
to
also,
It'll be 3 million even then roughly, so.
Right.
yeah. So again, that's all the things that you've talked about, not necessarily committed to, things that we've put on hold, all of that. And then obviously the completed items that have already been done, but
And now some of these items are already in our budget that we were just looking at.
correct. That is
Oh.
correct.
The big ones that aren't would be the alleyways and the Catbrier, I mean, not Catbrier, I'm sorry, Garden Road and RV storage area.
The estate's drainage.
and
yeah,
the
you've
safe
got,
storage.
so you've got the estate's drainage two spots. You've got one above that was 34,000, then you've got the estate's drainage improvements for 25,000.
Yeah, so the 34,000, Carol, is what you've paid Atlantic to put cameras in the pipes and clean them. Which is pretty much, that'll be done this fiscal year. What I entered further below was my guess on the pipe repairs, not that they've been cleaned and inspected.
Thank you.
You got the alleyways, the Garden Road, the commercial vehicle parking area at 6, 230, and another 125. So you're, by the time you get through with inflation and everything, those 3 projects, they're about $1 million outside of that budget.
Right.
Is the tree trimming covered in your budget, Angel? I didn't know if that was,
Yes,
Pieces
okay.
of it, yes.
and the hydrilla treatment is covered there, and sidewalk grinding and lots of things are already included in there.
Most of the important stuff is in the budget. And the one thing we don't know about yet is going to be that landscape contract. We don't know where that one's going to end up and what kind of add-ons we put on for that, to either add to or save money. But you got somewhere between 600 and $1 million plus for that landscape contract, with almost $1 million of it plugged into the landscape or into the budget. So let's say landscape is covered in this budget. It still leaves the other projects outside. We got to settle that landscape to know what the next step is going to be. Landscape has got to be the priority, because number one, we got to do it. And number two,
Okay.
high variety of prices.
Right. And again, if we go with the proposal that we have right now for the 24% overall increase, that's the high number. We can't go above that, but we can back down. I would rather go ahead and set it at that now when we come up to our May meeting, and then back down from it, then set it lower and not be able to keep Harmony in good shape.
Well, you can't set it now because you're not in the meeting, but,
No, I said at our May meeting.
oh, okay.
I'm just expressing my preference. And this is what I see cities and counties do all the time. They go ahead and set it a little higher than what's absolutely necessary, and then they can come down from that.
Yeah, they send out the trim and then usually tell people if changes are made, this is what it might be. Yeah.
Right. So we can do that. And then as we go through the next couple of months before the final budget's due and final numbers are due, we can get more clarity on what in the world this economy might be doing. And figure it out from there. And by then we'll know our landscape too. Again, I'd hate to go to the May meeting, set the number much lower, assuming we will do a lower landscape provider cost, and then have something fall through and that provider back out, or we have a problem or something, and then we have to go to a higher one. And then we're caught again in that pinch. So I'd rather just be cautious and go to the number that's currently proposed and then back down than not have the option to be there.
Angel, one question. Should we take our last spreadsheet and delete or hide the roads that we're going to finish this year, or that's already covered in your budget and just had the true?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, that wasn't, I sent that to all of you as that's going to be in your agenda moving forward, is that spreadsheet. And I didn't even think to update it for specifically to this budget versus not. So I apologize, but I'll do that and send it out.
Okay. So does anybody else have any questions or thoughts or?
Are there any thoughts? I'll talk to Angel about this earlier. We typically have posted a proposed budget on the website. Angel, are we? I guess I want to set expectations. When do we think we would have something that we could post and start, getting feedback from people?
Oh, well, So typically, and to answer your question, now that you say that, no, we typically don't post a budget on a website until the board approves it. But those are districts that, because some do, some don't. It's a board thing. There's nothing that precludes you either way. The reason I asked you not to post this particular one is because I knew that we were going to go through it. So at least the workshop,
Right.
the board has seen it. You guys want these numbers put out there, and then absolutely you can post away, but that was my only thing.
No, I
would-
understand. And again, it's been done in the past. So that was.
Yeah, no,
my
that's,
thought. So go ahead, Teresa. Yep.
Yeah, I think the proposed budget will be the one that we settle on in May, because our final budget
that makes
hearing
sense.
won't be until what, July or August?
yeah, the deadline's
Right.
September, so it'll be July or August.
It's usually August.
So
Yeah.
whatever we approve in May and the proposed budget increase that we settle on at our May meeting then needs to go out so that everybody, the public, our
Mhm.
residents and everybody can understand it, digest it if they so desire, and come back with their input. And won't we be sending a letter out to the residents
If-
as far as if there's a proposed increase?
Yes, if there's an increase, a letter will go out. I did recommend, I've done it in other districts. Usually it's a legal letter and it's not user friendly. It tells you, hey, this is what your increase is going to be.
Or could be,
It could be, not is.
right?
But what I've always done with different boards is provide another letter with it that's very simple, and it just says, this is what the potential increase would be for. And then they tell you why they're looking to increase it. I don't know if the board wants to do that. You can do that as well. But yes, a letter will be sent out, so people will be made aware, and then
I think it's an excellent idea to have the additional informational letter, because frequently that allays people's concerns right up front, that they know they're paying an extra, $50 or $100 a month in order to get this, and this.
Are we selecting a bidder to go to contract with for the landscaping at the May meeting?
that would be the intent. Yes.
And then we can adjust the budget accordingly if we need to.
Absolutely. According to who you award it to, because you'll have those prices. So there won't be any fluff there. It is what it is.
Sounds good to me. It's past my bedtime.
Yeah, mine too.
And
Move to adjourn.
Any
again,
other-
if you agree with this, and something happens overnight or the next few, at the May meeting, if there's we can still change if anything needs to change, but if you're pretty okay with this, then that would make it go a lot quicker.
Yeah, I'm guessing we'll be changing a number of things come the meeting,
Okay.
to guess.
And of course, landscape will, have a big impact.
Yes.
All right. Well, anything else? I'll save this workshop.
All right, is there anything else anybody needs to interject, or any other business?
Real quick,
Covered our agenda.
David, did you have
That's it.
something?
real quick, officially, we posted the
David.
advertisement for the C1, C2 alleyways. And as of a couple hours ago, we already got 7 contractors have downloaded the plan, so hopefully the big turnout will yield hopefully a better number than the Garden Road, so we'll find out, so.
Hope so. Any other input before we adjourn the workshop?
The landscape vendors that proposed will be at the May meeting to answer any questions that the board may have.
Great. All right. Anything else? Hearing nothing, I will adjourn the meeting since we can take no action. Thank
night.
you,
Have a
everybody.
great night. Thank you.
You know,
Take
Good
care.
night, everybody.
Good night.
hey,